Welcome to Hurrdat Sports Live.
I'm going to take this time to say thank you to the Kansas City Chiefs, Coach Reed and his staff. They've been a world to me and my family, and I'm so happy and grateful to be here to coach these young men to move forward and hoping for great things.
You know, each year when you have success, and, you know, in previous year had an opportunity, one of the most famous coaches in football, I won't mention him, called and had an opportunity. And each year, you know, if you do your job at a high level, you have opportunities. If you don't, you have a for sale sign in your yard. And so, you know, this was a really unique opportunity. This is where I'm from. This is my home. My parents live in Fremont. You know, my uncle Bob Martin was an All-American here. I grew up going to every one of these games, and you know, it's in your blood. And Nebraska, I mean, to be able to come back and do my part, do a small part of bringing it back where we're all used to. That's why I came.
I would say the people and just doing some research on Coach Rule. I had already known Coach Butler, and then Coach Mosey, who was already here, who was down at my last spot with us, and he had nothing but great things to say about the place. And so when the opportunity started to kind of come about, it was something that I definitely wanted to look into, and glad that I made the decision to come here.
Good morning. Welcome into Hurrdat Sports Live, presented by Centris Federal Credit Union. We're all here and accounted for. What's up, DB?
You are looking live.
That's your guy, Keith Jackson?
Yes.
Brent Musburger.
Brent Musburger, Mr. Wide Open.
Mr. Hit the Over, Brent Musburger.
There's Braylon Edwards. Boy, I tell you, just getting free on the secondary, wide open.
Which
Jackpot, baby.
Which game is that you're quoting right there?
Colorado. Not Colorado. That was Ohio State.
Michigan, Ohio State?
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
You know, there's like a couple calls I have.
I like Brent Musburger.
I do too. Are we getting a little echo? Somebody? Is that
I don't
me?
know. It's could be, but my volume is up. I almost said Valium. I was like, I need one.
That's a different thing.
Yeah.
We'll keep that at a normal level.
Woo. I mean,
a little dicey out there.
Oh yeah.
You said when we came in, like
it's the craziest thing.
It's the
ever.
weirdest conditions.
So I knew it was weird because when I pulled out, there were a couple of like pots and stuff that I had to put back because I just don't like a disheveled look.
Sure.
I like order. I know you're surprised. And the layer in my driveway is crunchy but breakable.
It's like crunchy snow on top.
Yeah, it's about, I don't know. I should have Shane come over. I think it's about an inch.
Yeah,
maybe. But you're driving and there's ice.
Mm-hmm.
Clearly.
Yeah.
But there's freestanding water too.
A lot of it. It's strange.
So I'm like, what? How is there water
and ice
simultaneously? But so you will see that when you're out, if you're out and about. Hopefully you're like normal people, not us, and you're at the house chilling.
Yeah, I wouldn't recommend going out if you don't have to.
Yeah, and it depends on what corridor you're in.
Yeah.
I got some, of course, being statewide. I have friends all over the place.
So popular.
No, actually, I'm not. It's just, I'm telling you, man, the goddamn social media makes it seem like I know people probably better than I should, or maybe vice versa.
I think both, actually.
But there's people that I genuinely enjoy talking to that I couldn't pick them out of a line.
Yeah, you've never met before.
But
maybe once, but yeah.
Yeah, but do you know I do go through my own screening process?
Oh, yeah?
Oh, yeah. I'm not telling you. But, and those guys know.
Yeah.
Like if I've probably told them at some point, like if I'm responding, there was probably a point that we like crossed over where it's like, okay.
Now we're cool.
Yeah. But so like driving, I don't know, man. It's kind of wild. A lot like Nebraska last night, but I don't know what happened. Like the wind was crazy, but there are these sections across the state. Some people got smoked.
Mm-hmm. There's about 6 inches of snow at my house. And we only live a few miles apart.
Yeah, that's wild.
And I don't think it's just drifting.
So the rain had stopped where I am, and I'm literally 100. Wow, I'm not far from here.
Yeah.
The rain had kind of stopped early in the day, and other people are like, it's pouring. I'm like,
yeah,
you you're 3 miles from me, but it's notorious, like the Fort Street corridor.
Mm-hmm.
And I used to live on that part of town. Remember, I hadn't lived south of Dodge in 35 years. So this whole area is new to me still. I bump into things like strangers. And I'm like, man, this weather is wild. Columbus was getting smoked yesterday, and all we had was rain.
Yeah.
There are parts of the interstate that are closed. I'm like, wow, this is
it's not great out here.
Yeah, it's wild. It's wild.
We got Kobe telling us no snow in western Nebraska.
So how far is western, Kobe?
Yeah, Kobe, where are we talking about?
So
here?
western, you have to be west of Kearney.
For sure. Yeah, because that's central.
If you're not west of Kearney, that is not western Nebraska.
Yeah.
If you're talking Gretna, then you're a good comedian. Oh, one of my faves is in.
JR?
No, why not Hoiberg?
Oh yeah, he hasn't been very talkative lately. I think he's in, but
oh man, welcome back. Or black or whatever.
Welcome in? Well, I don't know. But no, it was it's a little dicey out there. Be careful. We'll get our NDOT in early this morning.
KP's out towards Eagle. So I told you where that was. Just over West of Lincoln. I don't know what he's got. He said he's got some crunchy stuff.
Eagle's kind of over by Crete, right? That's where we decided.
Yep.
Just like east of Crete.
Yeah. So basically, I think it's
due south of Lincoln.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. So I don't know where Kobe is.
Kobe's west of Kearney.
Oh, he is west
That's
of
what he
Kearney.
said.
Okay, so that is western.
Yeah, so that's out there.
He would know.
We out of here, right?
Dude, Kobe surprises me every day with the more he divulges.
Yeah, he's like, I'm 20. I'm 18 years old.
Yeah, first of all, he was a kid with a 65-year-old soul, and he's out in western Nebraska,
living in McCook.
All right, then. So we got guys in Alliance, we got guys in Ogallala, we got
guys all over.
We obviously have people in Gothenburg.
TK's in Lawrence.
Yeah, TK's in Lawrence. TK is not happy last night. Ooh, boy.
Yeah.
But if TK turns it around and he's up and active this morning, good on him because he was getting it in late last night. He is not a happy camper. Not a happy camper.
Why is that?
I just don't think he liked the way.
Nebraska ball?
Yep.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Which is testing me this morning, Ravi.
What is?
So, I'm a big. And I listen. I think you better set the show now. Do you want me to set the show?
Go for it.
You set the show. Go ahead, set the show. I kind of like. I like your voice when you like coming up today.
Coming up on the show today.
Yeah, that's kind of your thing.
We've got Brian Christopherson, Husker 24/7. We will also talk to our guy Kevin Sjuts from 1011 News in Lincoln, and the rest is just us and you.
Yeah. So now that we got the formalities out of the way,
yes, sir.
It's testing me where I don't want to just fall victim to. I almost want to say the environment, but I'm not around these people.
Okay.
But I feel like the environment is one that is dictating negative officiating vibes. And I'm trying not to fall into that because I'm like, all right, what could Nebraska control? What could they not control?
Well, if you have thoughts, 888-638-4876.
Yeah.
I would love to hear because I want to know what.
I've driven through Eagle.
I want to know that's just
right where you are, KP.
The social media perception, or if that's how people are actually feeling.
So you know who didn't help?
Who?
So two things didn't help. Did you stick around for the post game on the network?
No.
Yeah, BTN went in hard.
Did they?
Yeah.
Did they go the technicals or the traveling?
Well, all of it. Just officiating in general. So the post game went in hard, and of course Bardo was going in.
Yeah, Bardo was. I'm not a huge.
Okay, we're gonna go back and I'm not gonna listen. I am not gonna fight you over this, but you better knock it off.
Not a huge. I know it's a hard job. I get that. I do. I'm not a huge Bardo.
I'm gonna need you to knock it off.
Why?
Because I've gone back and forth on Bardo, and I would like for you to rest on what I've rested on.
He's really good when he's with Kugler.
That's the easy. Yes.
I mean.
But I think normally he's pretty good.
I didn't think he was very good last night. I usually don't have a huge problem with him. Yeah. I didn't think he was great last night.
Was it like the new braids, the greased locks?
No, I honestly don't even remember seeing him. I'm sure they showed him. I just wasn't paying attention when they were showing him.
So
I just didn't love
I think the thing with the peacock.
Yeah.
I don't know how many cameras they had rolling.
Yeah,
because I've done things for BTN, right? And depending on the game, you may have 6 cameras, you may have 4, you may have 8. So they didn't get to the guys at the monitor a lot, even though the tail end of that game was a lot of monitory type stuff.
For sure, yeah.
So you'd think you'd see those guys, but you didn't. I'm trying not to fall into the officiating thing, but
Can two things be true at once?
bracketology, Joe Lenardi has Nebraska still the last 4 in.
I don't understand it. I
do. I think you guys. I think you guys are not very smart.
All right.
I do. Like I think all this, but it is bubblicious. But I think you guys were way down. I think you know too much.
I don't know, man. The metrics aren't good.
Yeah, listen, I understand, Robbie.
Like the metrics aren't any good.
But when I tell you that 90% of the brackets are composite when Nebraska's in, they're in, then I don't think you should be a doubting Thomas.
I am going to be a doubting
Although
Thomas.
I don't, you know what? I think doubting Thomas kind of gets a bad rap too.
Why is that?
He just was inquisitive.
Yeah.
I don't know if he's kind of a doubter. Although he came up in Sharpie's funeral with one of the eulogies, and it was a beautiful analogy. My man Thomas.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which, by the way, we got Kevin Sjuts on the day I saw Sjuts. Sjuts is not, I don't know why I remember Kevin being, and let's not act like I haven't seen him for 15, I've seen him over the last
Forever.
12, 15 years.
Yeah.
He looked very slight.
Mm.
I sized him up. I said, hey, Sjuts, first round draft pick? I don't know, man. You got them shoulders that Severe doesn't like in his quarterbacks.
Slopey shoulders?
I don't know. But it was not the time or place to make jokes.
Maybe.
So I kept that to myself.
Maybe he wasn't. Maybe he's not working out for bulk anymore.
Yeah. So I mean, were you? You guys are making me mad in the text strand, but I got over it.
It seems like it.
Do you know why?
What? No, I don't.
Because I'm not in there with what I would call Nebraska fans. They're basketball guys.
Yeah.
So you guys say some things sometimes that I want to choke each and every last one of you because I like the program.
Okay.
And sometimes real time, I don't want negativity, but I have to, but like my typical personality,
Yeah.
I have to own my own emotions because I'm making a choice to be invested. So I have to take what comes with it.
Yeah.
So I can't hold it against you guys.
Yeah. I would not, with the exception of maybe Maddie, I wouldn't say any of us are rooting against the program.
And I don't think he does a very good job.
He stays pretty even.
Yeah. Yeah.
But like, I think Jacob likes the program.
If it wasn't so,
I like the
if
program.
it wasn't so awkward to say, "Do you want to come over?"
Yeah.
I would hang out with Dean.
Oh, he'll come over.
Like, do you know what I mean? But
he
it's
doesn't
just
live
weird.
very far from you.
It's
either.
just weird for. I mean, what do you say?
Just like, hey, you want to come over?
love you, Damon, because you.
Yeah.
Just like, hey, you want to come over watch the game?
Like I have a strange affinity for him.
Oh no, I get it. I do too. I love that dude.
So anyway.
Yeah.
And Jacob's just Jacob.
Yeah.
Right. Very.
I think you all live within like 3 miles of each other.
Jacob is practically my neighbor.
Yeah, he's like in your backyard.
He's right on the corner.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, so I'm trying not to allow myself to succumb to. I was hearing it almost the whole broadcast.
Mm-hmm.
The social media is a mess.
On which part?
Officiating. But I can't get over the fact. So there's 3. Number one, Nebraska it was almost like they came back from the dead. 63-53, you're like, man, they're in trouble.
Yeah, you thought it was a wrap.
You got the and one, and friggin' Samson and Delilah's going to the line, to complete the and 1-3, which, by the way, they had no answers for him for whatever reason. Then Nebraska somehow, how did that thing get to overtime?
I don't know.
Which one?
How did that thing get? So listen to what I said, Jay Benning. I said overtime. I didn't say the second overtime. I said overtime. So how'd that thing get to overtime?
I don't know. I really don't.
Nebraska had no business.
Like I'd have to.
So then I was like, all right.
Well, and
You're controlling your own destiny. Do your thing.
Dean Marinas brought it up too with the body language of Ohio State going into overtime.
Oh yeah.
Because you could kind of tell they also felt like they couldn't figure out how Nebraska got
Which
that
one
thing
of you
to overtime.
ding dong said puckered? Was it you?
Yeah.
Oh, that got me going. That got me going.
Well, because he was talking about all the missed free throws down the stretch and kind of
Nebraska was atrocious from the line.
Well, Ohio State missed a bunch of key free throws as well.
Yeah, but they got more opportunities, so I that buoyed my emotions.
Sure. But I mean, they missed.
I don't know if that's right. That's just what I tell myself
That's what it
when
felt
I
like
want to regulate.
time.
Yeah.
It felt like each team was missing some critical free throws that they had no business missing, right? Obviously, you get the Bryce Williams one at the end of the regulation. You had one with Ohio State in almost the exact same situation that would have had them get the win in the first overtime. Like, they were missing some critical free throws.
Okay, so you guys are going back and forth.
That's when I said puckered.
Rapid fire. That's the second time in as many days I didn't love a flagrant call.
Okay, the Williams one?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I agree.
So what if you just drop me in from is Neptune still a planet?
Yeah, just Pluto's the one that's a little on
okay.
the outs.
I try to stay current. If you just drop me in and I'm watching, I didn't love that flagrant call.
I'm not going to fight you on that.
And
I'm okay living in a world where that's not a flagrant.
Yeah, it's kind of like the Northwestern UCLA thing. Like, understand the spirit of the rule versus actually what you're seeing.
Yeah, letter of the law versus spirit of the law, right?
Well, that's kind of fancy.
Oh,
sure, what you said.
We talked about it a lot.
Should be a T-shirt.
So I've had too many theological discussions. That's why it.
Are you a philosopher?
No, but I did go to school for theology.
I think very deeply. It's KRS-One.
Yeah, it's.
Do you know
the Muffin Man?
I think you're already divulging. I'm just trying to find a way to win more $20 bets at a time because we're at even. Well, technically we're not, but kind of.
Well, it's reset because you're collected.
So I wanted to ask you if you knew what group KRS-One was a part of.
No.
Shane?
I wouldn't bet on that either.
I'm just trying to find a way to siphon $10 at a time. Fudge. I looked at the 64-pack of eggs at a said grocery store yesterday. $15.89.
Shane, you gonna say anything
about KRS-One?
He Googled. Did you Google?
That's all.
Nah, Boogie Down Productions.
Oh.
BDP.
Oh.
Never even heard of him.
Are you a philosopher? Yes, I think very deeply.
Never heard of her.
Anyway, so I go back and forth over the officiating thing, and part of it is I'm been conditioned. I'm like flipping DB Pavlov, the old whipping boy. No pun intended with the boy thing. Where, well, don't complain about officiating. Let's just put ourselves in positions where you can control what you can control, and we're not going to talk about officiating. We probably just need to play better. Okay, cool. I'm in my late teens, early 20s.
Mm-hmm.
Then I have a lot of friends that officiate.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't I understand how difficult it is. But then I actually watch what happens, and sometimes I want to be mad. But I don't want to. I don't want to be mad about last night, and I need you to let me know it's okay to just say, you know what, don't be mad.
Oh, I was gonna say it's okay to be mad about last night.
Yeah, see, I don't need to be rowdy this morning because it's close.
All right,
it's close.
I mean,
do you know what I mean? Like I want to be bothered by it.
Yeah, no,
I do.
I'm not. I'm probably not a great person to talk you off that ledge because I understand being bothered by it.
You know where your strengths.
Yeah, I'm not. Like, there's certain situations where I would tell you, yeah, you probably shouldn't be bothered by it.
Yeah.
But the one for me, and I'm sure we'll get into all the, I don't want to get all into the nitty gritty of every call, but
now that's what I don't want to do.
Yeah, because that's not that fun, right? Like, I get it.
It's not that fun.
It's not, but I will say that
it's not fun, Ravi. Losing. That's not fun.
Also true. But the lack of the flagrant or the technical when the guy spikes the ball, that's a technical every single time. It just is. And he did it twice consecutively.
I know.
He did double into his hands, and then he spiked it. Like, even you'll see the double into your hands, let it go.
Yeah.
If you spike it and let the ball fly, that's always a tech. So I understand if you're mad about that. I also understand
if we're playing 21 or something like that, we're just in the gym.
Yeah.
We're back at, I don't know, we're at Grace. No, I wouldn't have gone to Grace because freaking Bosley was a Blandino. But
we're over at Sokol. We're hanging out with Flan.
At Sokol, right? Yeah. Flan would perfect example. Flan would let us get some run.
Mm-hmm. He used to come run at Grace. That's how I know.
We were playing me and you.
Yeah.
We're playing at 21. It's make it, take it. I go up 13-11, man. I'm on a 3-shot heater.
All right.
and you give me the ball back in a checking manner, or you slam the ball, or you roll it to me slow, or I'm in a rhythm, like I'm gonna be mad.
Yeah.
Let alone if we're in a real game.
Yeah.
That's number one. It's delay a game.
Yes. 100%.
It's a delay game. Just call the dang thing. And the thing that bugs me, he's daring you to do it.
Yeah, because he did it twice.
Yeah. It's like you give me the slow roll. You know, like when I'm ready.
Yeah, no.
And you just
trickle it back to you.
Pretend bowl it to me.
Yep.
Like I'm gonna be mad.
Yeah, 100%.
Give me the rock, man.
And you should be. Because it's a Dean Blandino move.
Yeah, it's
a douchey move. But here's the thing. Even in pickup ball, there's the differentiation between his first slam of the ball and second slam of the ball. If I go double hand slam back into my hands and then check it up to you, you don't say a word, right?
Probably. Yeah, I like that. I probably don't. I don't probably.
But if I slam it in the ground, one hand, let it bounce up, you're like, hey, what are you doing, man? Give me the ball back.
I probably don't. And then I'm mad. Yeah.
Like there's a difference.
I'll take that.
The first one, I'm fine with. Double. That happens all the time and they don't call it. If you catch it, they'll usually let it slide. But it's the second one where they go but here's that's obviously egregious. I get that. It's a huge miss. It's a bad missed opportunity for Nebraska to kind of change the momentum there a little bit. At the same time, what did I text at halftime?
I can't remember. That thing got big. I put my phone down.
Yeah, no, you stopped replying.
Listen, there were 17 messages. It was literally only like 4 minutes.
It was mostly just me and DeMarinis going back and forth.
I was mad at my house, so I was super pouty.
Yeah.
But so halftime was, oh my God.
Because you made a snarky reply. Because they made a 3 right at the buzzer.
Oh, I said would 42 have been better?
Yeah, I said, hey, Nebraska's probably not going to win many games where they're giving up 45.5.
Yeah. Well, you were like down. You it felt to me like you got nitpicky over a friggin' deep I wasn't 38-foot 3, and I was like, well, would 42 have been better?
No, and I said no. Like that. My point wasn't 45 versus 42.
Did that sound snarky?
It did, yeah.
Really?
Yeah, I thought you were being snarky in real time.
So I haven't been mad at you in 8 years.
Well, snarky and mad are different.
Ooh, for me, it's close.
Okay, well, for me, it's
because I'm not typical snark guy.
Yeah, that's fair. For me, if I'm being snarky, it doesn't mean I'm mad at you. I'm just being.
You're
me.
just you.
Yeah, that's who I am as a person.
Yeah. And so do you know? I gotta say this first because this will help your layout.
Yeah.
If they would have won,
when
it got into the hundreds, I was gonna come back at you.
100%.
I was coming back tough.
100%. That's why, I'm watching real time as Bryce could have won a free throw or hit a free throw, and I was ready to reply. I was like, well, I guess 42 would have been okay.
Yeah.
And I was ready for the reply.
I was ready to let it rip.
And so, but no, my point there is, yes, there were some bad calls. The flagrant on Williams, the lack of a tech call. There was, TK's talking about the disparity between double bonus, Nebraska not being able to ball.
He was TK was going all in last night.
So, I get it. There's a lot going on with the officiating. I also understand Nebraska's not going to win a lot of games in the 90s. Yeah. That's both of those things can be true.
Yeah, but I don't so sure.
They weren't playing a style that's going to lead to very many wins.
But they were in the deal, and every now and again that happens.
It does. It does.
We can't always deal in myopic ideals, man. They put themselves in position to win a game in which they could have outscored their opponent.
Yeah, but that's not going to be a recipe for success for them very often.
It isn't for Ohio State either.
I understand that. But we're not talking about Ohio State. We're talking about Nebraska.
And the thing about it is, and this is what people don't like to do unless you're a basketball head.
Mm-hmm.
I told you with the matchups, and I think I asked, was it Mike J? It was one of the basketball guys. I'm like, this is going to be a weird – what'd I say about rotation? What did I say specifically?
Well, it's going to be a weird rotation game.
Because of which two guys that I feel like could get exposed?
For Nebraska?
Mm-hmm.
I feel like
they had the two worst plus minuses going in after last game.
Was it Morgan?
No,
not Morgan.
Who'd you guys keep making fun of in the group text?
Barricade.
That's one.
Yeah.
And the other guy you didn't even see. Barely.
Let's see.
Wow, he's your whipping boy. I'm surprised you're forgetting about him.
Who? Rooster?
Mia.
Oh, I forgot he even played, honestly.
That's what I'm saying.
Did he play?
So, for whatever the reason he didn't play.
Yeah, I don't think he played.
No, But that's my point.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Sorry, I was looking at like box score,
That's
looking
my
at like
point.
who played.
The junkie in me says Nebraska's bench is going to be short because of the way Ohio State plays.
Sure.
Because what's the question I asked Schaefer? I didn't want to ask a leading question. I wanted to get somebody else's opinion. Hey, does Ohio State play in a way that lends itself to these things being a factor? And
Sure.
I used those two guys.
Yeah.
Sure enough.
I mean, Berkey didn't play that much.
He didn't play well either. He had to sit him for a while.
Yeah.
Stop shooting hard shots. Well, I'm not mad at him.
He took 2 early and he didn't take another one. He did foul out though. Seems like you're a little mad at him. He had some bad fouls too.
And he's palms up, dude. Like
What happened?
What
happened?
I'm telling you.
The one where
you're dude, I pulled Christian Jones in the state finals.
Yeah.
For going palms up in crunch time.
Yeah.
No, you know what you did.
Yeah.
You could come see me. And I broke my headset.
Well, come on, man. Don't
Dude,
break the
palms up is like
I would say that's a pet peeve.
That's like my bad, man. No bleep.
More Hurrdat Sports Live coming up next.
We will be back. 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 You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Live.
Welcome back, Hurrdat Sports Live here at Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla, and we're reminding you it's a little dicey out there this morning. Make sure if you have to be on the road, which travel is still not advised. If you have to be on the road, make sure you got those eyes focused and straight ahead. No distractions this morning. No distractions any morning, but especially today with all the weird road conditions we were talking about earlier. Some spots it's crystal clear. Some spots it is super dicey. Make sure you are not distracted. This message from the NDOT Highway Safety Office.
I need T-Mac to hit me up. So Greenwood to GI on I-80 is closed?
Oh, wow.
I know there are parts of the interstates that are closed. And I'm not. So hear my heart. Hear my heart. I'm reading. I'm not saying that's what it is. I'm asking for clarity. T-Mac, if you want to hit me up, 888-638-4876.
That's where TK hit us up.
Or he could just call or text.
I think he probably text you.
Yeah. But I would like to know.
Got the digits?
Yeah.
Let's get to our guy TK. Let's talk a little more Nebraska basketball. TK, DB said you were heated last night. What's going on?
I don't see that. I don't see that TK very often. Did not appear to be very happy, TK.
No. You know, as much as I'd like to talk about how impressed I was with Coach Williams and Coach Braden yesterday and talk about that psychopath who's going to run from Lincoln to Omaha and back probably today.
Yeah, we'll get to him in a sec.
And both of you know that I'm, average height, short, fat white kid who could only play center. That's how unathletic I was. I don't really understand this whole basketball thing. But geez, how?
I know.
How did they even get that bad? I turned it off before the inbound.
What? You saw it 99% of the way through, and you're like, nah, I'm out. I'm done.
So I had to wake up at 5 this morning.
Dude,
I was
crowd,
already heated. There was no need for me. My wife was already in bed. There was no need for me to be yelling downstairs. I just don't. You have to explain to me, and maybe this is why Ravi hates some officiating so much. How can people be hit over the head consistently? No foul is called, but
Yeah, that did get you going. That exchange that got you going on the text exchange. You just didn't like the lack of consistency.
Yeah, I don't understand because I only played sports where the whole goal was to beat the heck out of somebody, and so we were okay with that. But explain to me the disparities of basketball officiating, please. Why is it like this?
So, TK,
why is my heart consistently broken by these dudes and by Kelly Pfeiffer? He's the worst.
Oh,
I know nothing, and I know that he sucks. Name me one fan base that likes Kelly Pfeiffer.
Nah, I get it.
There's not a single person on the in the fan base world that likes Kelly Pfeiffer.
I can't even remember.
He has the LASIK account on Twitter, tweeting at him right now for free LASIK.
Wow. Not Willie LASIK, huh?
TK, we appreciate the call. We'll get into kind of some of the things you mentioned with the refs there here in a second. I don't think anybody's as hated as the high stepping ref. I think he's the Jeff Anderson. I think he's kind of universally disliked.
That's your guy.
No, absolutely not.
What game were we at we weren't together, but
it was Creighton Marquette last year. It was Creighton Marquette last year. Yeah, no, I remember.
You're losing your mind.
I was so mad. No, so
I just want to watch this game in peace.
I was like, fat chance. You gave me your
Kobe's out here calling people criminals. Kobe, you can't say that.
A war criminal. So here's to answer TK's question. So there's a lot of things that can happen to create a disparity in fouls, right? And last night was one I can understand the frustration because I didn't think either team was playing that differently in terms of their physicality.
Yeah.
I thought it was pretty even in that sense. And generally, when that's the case, you should see a reasonably even foul disparity, typically. My issue comes in, so I understand the frustration with Nebraska and kind of the foul calls and the free throws disparity, the whole thing. I get it. I don't always think that free throws should be even. Some teams, and it's probably because I watch Creighton a lot, Creighton just doesn't foul, right?
Yeah.
That's not a one-year, one-off thing. Creighton doesn't foul very much. And they play a lot of teams that play super physical. And a lot of times referees still feel the need to have the foul calls be somewhat even so that they either aren't getting blown up by Shaka Smart or Danny Hurley or whoever, right? And that's just not how the game's going. So there's two things that I dislike with officiating: inconsistency and allowing basketball to not be played.
Okay, so I think the only thing coaches would agree with you on, because the second one is
that's a personal preference. Like I get that. No, I understand.
Consistency, I think, is the one that coaches
if you give coaches consistency, most of them will take it.
All right, but let me ask you something. Mm-hmm. And you need a frame of reference because first of all, I'm not very much fun because I'm super practical.
Yeah.
So I understand that going in. Right? I can stay even keeled for a long time. It's not fun. It even makes me mad. You're talking to a guy that bad fumble, no fumble, made up call, touchdown taken off the board. All different things. Would still tell you, you know what? Tremaine Bell catch over the middle. We set our place kicker up. We had a chance to win. So you're talking to that dude. Okay. Where do you come out on the way that the game is being officiated, even if whether you like or you don't like it, but you don't make free throws?
I'm going to have a real hard time blaming it on the refs.
Okay. So I'm a little surprised that you're down on the officiating as much as you were when a good free throw shooting team, at least I thought they were. Minnesota has me shook, and so does this game, where it's like,
well, we know Bryce Williams is a good free throw shooter.
Do you know why I'm not? Do you know why I'm not mad about? Westside was 16 of 31 or 33 from the free throw line against Lincoln Southwest.
Yeah, it's a 2-point game, right?
You lost by 2.
Yeah,
you have no one to be upset with,
100%,
but yourself.
I get that,
right? So that's how I am.
Yeah,
right. I mean, we end up losing. There's just things that happen during the course of the game where it's like, hey, you know what? If we don't have, of all the things we did, right? Let's say we tackle Amir Hill in space. Just get him to the ground. Let's say we don't have a face mask. You can say anything else about what happened. Oh, they're this and they're that. And there's still these portions of the game that I look at with myself and I'm like, you know what? If you control the controllables, there's a lot less of this that happens.
I agree.
So that's probably always going to be my stance, so it's not fun. But I am willing to listen to consistency, and two things can be true at once.
So that's where I'm at with Nebraska last night.
Okay.
I'm actually not that upset about the officiating last night.
Which doesn't have anything to do with your fandom or lack of fandom, contrary to popular belief.
No, I want Nebraska to be successful.
Yeah.
I know people don't think that's true. I'm glad Omaha's successful, even though I had to eat a big old plate of crow on Coach Crutch. I want Nebraska to be successful, and obviously I root for Creighton. Like, I want everybody to be successful in basketball in Nebraska. But I do land on the two things can be true at once. I do think there was some egregious officiating. And Nebraska did a lot of things that cost them this game that had nothing to do with the officials.
Yeah.
I also think there was a consistency issue last night, which is where I will kind of get worked up about officiating. Like, as a basketball fan, a fan of the sport, that's where I get upset about the lack of freedom of movement and allowing people to be too physical for no good reason and making the game not look like basketball. Not as a fan of a certain team. If it's going both ways, I can live with that. I've learned to go into games where if a game's going to be officiated that way against a St. John's or a Marquette, I just know Creighton's probably not going to win, and I can live with that. I'm okay. But what I don't like is when there's inconsistency or, like, it's not even a gameplay thing when a guy's slamming a ball into the ground and there's an easy, like, that's an easy tech. It just always, like, that's just, you just didn't call it.
Yeah.
Like, that's not even a gameplay thing. That's just a not paying attention or not calling things the way they're always called. So I guess that's a consistency issue within the greater scheme of reffing basketball. Because every one of those guys on the floor has teed a guy up for doing that exact same thing. And they would do it 99 times out of 100. They would tee a guy up for that. That's what like, some of that's the stuff I don't understand. I also don't want to absolve Nebraska for playing a game in stylistically that I think they're going to have a hard time winning. I am also not going to absolve Nebraska for missing free throws when, like, Bryce Williams makes 2 out of 2 at the end of regulation. We're not having this conversation, right? He goes 1 out of 2, ties the game, misses the game, the one that would have put him ahead. He's a 90% free throw shooter.
How much time left? Was there 4-5, 4-7? What was on the clock?
It was under 6, I think.
Okay.
I can't remember if it was 4-7 or 5-7, somewhere in there. But, and you can't make it as linear as, well, they missed it's a tie game. It's different when you're down 1. I get it, right? But you're not even giving yourself a chance there by missing that second free throw as a 90% free throw shooter. I get it. I get there's a lot there where you say, hey, we had some really bad possessions and some shots we really shouldn't have taken. I also can say, hey, Bryce Williams did about everything he could, going 6 for 7 from the free throw line. Yeah, he scored 43 points. They're not even in the neighborhood of that game without him. So I don't want to put it all on Bryce Williams either. But Nebraska did not do themselves a ton of favors in that game. At the same time, if I tell you, hey, they're going to shoot 53% from the field, 43% from 3, and turn the ball over 11 times, not an egregious amount. You're probably
that's for as long as that game was played.
That's a great amount.
The way they valued the basketball was really good.
That's a 50-minute game, 11 turnovers. Like, you'll take that
every day that ends in Y.
And then you look at, okay, they won the rebounding battle. They were in it in turnovers. They shot the ball well. So there's a part of me that's like, they did a lot of things well to win that game. Now, defensively, that's where I would have more issues.
So who's bugging you that they got off?
I mean, pick one. They had 4 guys go over 20?
Again, keep in mind the duration of the game. I'm
I
not knocking the hustle.
I get that.
But you need perspective relative to what those guys bring in, contribute night in, night out.
Any one specific guy, it's that they couldn't keep it to 1 or 2 guys, right?
In a game like that, you're just not.
Okay.
That's my opinion.
My opinion is you can't let it get to a point where you're 50 minutes in and playing into the 1-teens. Like, that's kind of my stance on Nebraska winning or losing.
Yeah.
They're just not going to, like text you at halftime. Hey, they give it 45 points a half, they're probably not going to win very often. Stylistically, I think they were putting themselves in a position where they're going to have a tough time.
I'm going to tell you the guy that hurt him.
Who?
You can't let Stewart be that efficient last night on the floor.
Just 5 for 5, going to the free throw line a little bit.
You just can't. Scrambling, loose balls. I mean, he's a guy. He scores 5 a night. Little 5 a night in conference play. Like, there's just a couple of things that happen. I mean, I guess I'm okay with the late 3 that Sampson hit.
Okay, yeah.
Ugh.
Yeah, that happens.
But I'm going to tell you, we get into the weeds with Nebraska basketball and the psyche and this and that. You know what one of the biggest problems for me is?
What's that?
You cannot peg. I guarantee you. You cannot peg on any given night who Alfred is going to be for them. You know Batman.
Mm-hmm.
You know Robin.
Who's going to
You
help out?
And you can't win with the two-man thing.
Mm-mm.
So who's the third guy?
Yeah, I don't have a good feel on that at all, and they don't either.
It's a crapshoot.
Yeah.
Every night out, it's a crapshoot.
You're like, hey, is it going to be a Sejan?
Is it going to be Morgan?
Yeah.
It's like
is Barricade going to come back to life at some point?
No, I never thought that. I told you I quit on him.
You did,
and I was
You were early.
Yeah, I gave it.
You were early.
I gave it like
Barricade.
6 weeks.
Yeah.
Not week 6. I mean 6 weeks.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm in. Then I was like, nope. You know what? There's some telltale signs that let me know I can't ride.
Here's the problem, I think, with Nebraska. Not only do they not know who their Alfred is, I don't even know if they know who they want it to be or who they would need it to be.
Just kind of a dice roll?
Yeah, like I think after Gary and Williams, they're like, let's hope somebody figures it out today. Because at least with Creighton, it's Ashworth, Kalkbrenner, and you want the third guy to be Neal.
Yeah.
Right? Like pretty clear cut. Sometimes
typically it was. Even when he wasn't getting buckets last night, he was still the dude.
Right. There's some games he may not deliver.
Dude, is their rotation funny to you?
Yes, 100%. 100%. It's weird.
Yeah, and far be it from me. I felt like guys like Trout. It was just weird.
Yeah.
I didn't ask the question right in the group text about subs. Because Matty gave me the low-hanging fruit answer, and I was mad at him, but it wasn't his fault. I mean, he went into the Seton Hall run against UConn and by the 2-minute mark.
Mm-hmm.
But most of it was my fault for how I asked the question.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I wasn't sure what.
He answered it very linearly. Like
he answered what he heard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or what he read.
Yeah.
My question was, man, I think Trout and one other should probably be playing a little more right now. Like, but we're just going to ride this. That was my point.
Yeah.
I did not convince
the way I read it, I read it the same way Matt did.
No, you read it the way I texted it. So that's on me.
That's all right.
It's totally on me.
That's totally on me. No, I think the problem, though, like even when Jemiah Neal isn't necessarily having a great game, they know, hey, this is the third guy we need to get going. Part of the problem with Nebraska is they don't even know where to turn if they need the third guy, right? They're like, well, I hope Sejan knocks
I know who it
down.
needs to be, but I just
Morgan?
No, I think it's Sejan.
Sejan, yeah.
No, he's shooting almost 40% from three, but then there are these times where he'll split the double and he'll be on his way to the rack and he dribbles it off his thigh.
Yeah.
Or he'll have an open look for a catch and shoot, and it's like, this should go in. But it's almost like when it's clutch or crunch time, it just never does.
Can I make the argument here
You
that
can.
everybody on Nebraska is slotted up one spot too high in what the pecking order
Except
should
for
be?
Bryce. Yeah, I don't know what your pushback is on him, and maybe it's his ball handling. I'm telling you, he's as good a scorer.
Sure. Yeah.
As anybody in that league. There are no ifs, ands, buts about it. And I'm not saying you can't poke holes in his game. He is a legitimate number one scorer in the Big Ten Conference.
Okay, and maybe I can't unsee too many things from last year. I'm not giving him enough credit for this year.
Dude,
that's entirely possible. I mean, I don't have any problems with the way he's played this year.
With his offensive repertoire, Ravi, he's a bucket.
He is a bucket.
You can't really you can get into his personality traits or whatever.
So that's probably what I'm talking about more.
His skill set, he's a bucket.
No, that's totally fine.
He's a bucket.
Probably talking more about it doesn't seem like he's wired like a one to me. Like he doesn't think like one.
Well, shoot, neither is Kalkbrenner, and he is.
No, that's fair. That's totally
you know
fair.
what I mean?
And I get frustrated with Kalkbrenner for not being more
So
aggressive.
it's like, I think there's this image where we want it. His skill set is incredible.
I agree.
He's a 3-level scorer, and he's good for. He has been good as a foul shooter.
I mean, he is. He's 90%. He was 6 for 7 yesterday. He missed one.
There's not much to take away there.
No, and that's fine.
Dude, he's 19 a night in the Big Ten.
I'm probably talking more about the way I view his mentality, which is likely a me problem. So let's leave Williams out of it. Let's call him a true one. I don't have a problem with that. Gary's probably a little underqualified as a second scorer. I'd probably prefer if he's my third option.
Yeah.
Sejan is probably a little underqualified to be your third option. I'd probably prefer if he's my fourth.
So that's kind of where I disagree. I think Sejan should be your third.
You think he should be better?
And I think he's built to be a third. I think with his shot attempts and what he shoots from three. Now, is there something that he needs to add to his game in terms of the ability to put it on the deck? Sure.
Yeah.
Sure, but man, I don't know.
I don't know.
I feel like I'm going back to the Houston conversation with Maddie and some other guys that were online. I think Game Dog was all in. Like when I watch Houston and we talk talent or Auburn last night. Like who's their three? Is it Pettiford? Is it hyphenated last name? Is it you know what I mean? So
they probably want it to be Pettiford.
So what I'm saying is it's like some guys just have to embrace it. Wow, they still have Tyler Warren going in the top 10, huh? I'm not down on Tyler Warren, but kind of.
It seems like you're a little down on Tyler Warren.
So he trained with Fedoni in Florida. That was his partner.
Yeah.
Which, by the way,
so now you know too much?
Yep.
Okay.
And it wasn't disparaging because I try not to take advantage of talking to young people to pimp information. But, yeah.
Now you just know too much.
I do.
So you Loveland guy, or you just out on the tight, or you don't like the top of the tight end class anymore?
I like the tight end class.
Okay.
I like the tight end class.
You like the top end still, or more depth?
He'll be a good player.
Okay.
I just don't know about top 10.
All right. That is DB. I'm Ravi.
We'll talk coaches.
We'll talk some coaching. We've got Brian Christopherson coming up next, though.
We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Live.
Think about his path. Think about started off coaching D-line. Then he went linebackers, special teams coordinator. Then he makes a logical progression. He's a defensive coordinator. Another logical progression. He's a quarterbacks coach. Then he's offensive line coach for the Giants when they won the Super Bowl. Then, who does that? The man can coach. He's so highly intelligent. He can coach every position on the field. And he knows it. And what he's done, in my opinion, is he's hired a bunch of great teachers. And that's how, he's got a great plan as far as what he looks for in recruiting. We got a really fast football team. And like Coach Snow said, I was talking about the speed, and Coach Snow's like, hey, have you ever seen a donkey win the Kentucky Derby? He goes, we recruit speed and develop guys. And that's who he is. So I feel like I walked into an opportunity of a lifetime. And I walked away from a phenomenal situation where I was at Tennessee and with Josh Heupel, who's a lifelong friend of mine. So to come back here and to be a part of what's going on here and just do my job. That's what Coach said the other day. He said, everybody's got a job to do. Well, he hired me to come in here and coach special teams. And you know what? I'm going to give Coach Rule, I'm going to give the university and everybody in the state everything I got.
Kicking off hour number 2 here on Hurrdat Sports Live, presented by Centris Federal Credit Union. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla here at Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill. We are joined now by Brian Christopherson, Husker 24/7. BC, what's going on, man?
Oh, not much. How are you guys?
B Sizzle, how are we doing this morning? What is the
It's good to see your face, BC.
I know I love
Yeah. You can watch me drink coffee with my mug that has my dogs as 1920s mobsters or something.
I love that.
BC. People give me a hard time for using a giant mug because a lot of our promos have me with a giant mug.
Mm-hmm.
My friend is a giant mug. Where do you fill that thing? Is it to the brim?
Yeah. I'm not a fancy fella. I just, as you guys know, I just use the old Keurig machine, so I don't have high standards, which I think is obvious to most. But yeah, I filled up to the brim, and I get like 3 to 4 of them by 10 o'clock. And sometimes I'm a little sluggish because you have me on at 8, and that's actually a little early for me because I stay up.
And I'm going to try to stretch you too because you're smart.
Well, that's not true, but
that's your own fault.
I don't know about that, but yeah, I'm on my second coffee right now, so I'm doing okay, I think.
Are you old enough to remember the commercial? Fill it to the rim with brim.
I don't remember that one. No.
Coffee. Okay. All right. Well, we're close. I mean,
I could sing
you're a late 90s baby. It's okay. I won't hold it against you for graduating.
I could sing like that. It's Folgers in your cup. That song. I'm not going to sing it actually. I was about to, and then I stopped myself. But that's what I think of when I think of coffee commercials from my era, and then the Chris Farley skit on SNL where he gets upset.
Hey BC, I'm going to ask you something because we're boys, and I'm dead dog serious. I'm just curious. So, because there were probably 4 or 5 of these questions yesterday. Okay. And you may or may not have asked one of them. But do you guys have a feel on how a coach will answer and you ask the question anyway, relative to like at this stage when guys are on staff or where they are in the off season about individual players?
Yeah.
Do you just shoot your shot and hope to get an answer, or do you know, walk me through it? Because there were a couple of those yesterday, and I'm like, there's no way they're going to go into specifics.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. I think I did ask one of those questions, so you can get after me accordingly.
I'm curious.
I think because in my job, it's like 365 days of Husker football. You're always like analyzing the roster this way and that way. Whenever you get a coach in front of you at the microphone, you're like searching for a kernel, like, because you're thinking like, maybe next week when it's a little slow, I'll write a little 400-word story on punter Jack McAllister, for instance, And so if you ever hear me ask, which I did, I asked a question to Mike Eckler about McAllister and Gallick, the long snapper, and just like, what can they give you? There's not much Mike Eckler can do with that at this point, like 2 to 3 weeks in. I understand that, but he was on fire, and that he's a quote machine. And I thought, he might just spin out 250 words here that give a little story on that. So I think there's some of that goes with it. I thought Sam asked a good question about Bly Hill to Addison Williams, because although Addison's getting to know his guys, I think Bly Hill's an interesting player in a deep room that we forget about. Like, he was atop I don't know that we forget about him, but he was atop the depth chart at the end of spring, and then he had that injury. So he's going to be an interesting storyline. So I don't think we went too far with the individual stuff, but yeah, I could be guilty of like going down the entire secondary with Addison Williams if I was allowed. And that's not fair to him because he's just getting to know guys' names and stuff.
It's not a guilt or innocence thing. I always wonder, and sometimes it does depend on who asks the questions, because probably the more of an affinity I have for a guy when he asks the question, I kind of try to get into how he or she is thinking, right? So we saw it a couple weeks ago with Dasan McCullough, and Coach Simpson really wasn't going to take the bait.
Yeah.
But he said just enough. Hey, body type, development. Kristen Coggins put weight on. He still has to. Where it lent itself to a follow-up. But I almost get the sense that they've been conditioned, or they just don't know. They just don't know enough yet. Because we heard about the Donovan Jones thing, and they just don't know enough yet, or leadership and stuff like that, where they don't know enough to make any generalizations. But there's some smart people in that room that know you guys can feel if you think you have an in, or like an opening, or a guy makes himself vulnerable to asking a follow-up about specific players. Like, do you? I guarantee you're smart. You can get a feel if you can get an individual player snuck in as a question, right?
Yeah, definitely. There's some coaches who will go more down that road. It's easier to do if a guy's been in the program at least a year. So that's sort of the difficulty, I think, of the last two. They've been awesome press conferences to have that availability at this time of year. But those guys, how much can Phil Simpson say about Dasan McCullough? For one, he's just getting to know him, and maybe he does have more thoughts than he unveiled, and he probably does.
But he left himself open to a follow-up because he mentioned some older guys when he talked about Mav and some guys in the room.
Yeah, that's usually the clue, I guess, or it's a coach maybe putting on a tee, and maybe some won't do that in the future. If you mention like unsolicited, like 2 or 3 guys' names, then sometimes it does feel like it becomes a little bit open season. Like, okay, we're going to go through the roster now.
Because that's what we want to know about, right? Like we want to know about some guys.
And so that was the jam of the last 2 weeks. It was an awesome thing, but also you have a bunch of people in the room who are like just dying for like kind of to get going into the roster talk in the spring. Like, let's have these competitions out and stuff like that. And you have coaches who, why would you go on record saying a lot about any individuals right now without having your hand forced there? So there was like a give and take probably going on. But I didn't think for the most part, guys got a lot of questions about individuals. I do think when they come up starting in a couple weeks and then you get like 2 to 3 weeks in, it can be more interesting from the personnel standpoint. I mean, there's so many guys like in the secondary. I'm not saying this to butter you up. Like, I'd love Caleb Benning is like one of the most interesting guys to me. Yeah. Going into the spring. That's true. That's not because you're on the other end of this. I mean, so there's but there's like 10 to 12 in that room that just fascinate me. Heck, I wrote about it last week.
You want a chicken nugget, BC?
Yeah, give it to me.
I'll give you one because I love you. So he ran 21.92 a couple of times in winter conditioning because they've been going over the catapult scores. So the top, I think I can say this, the top handful of times this winter, have been had by defensive backs. Take that one and run with it this offseason story.
I pay attention to what you say. I actually heard you last week on that, and I think Donovan Jones was up there, and so I was proud of the Omaha boys representing like that.
And they're roommates too. So
Wow.
the thing that I love, and I hate to again, we're in the tree of trust because it's you. So I'm talking about all these things in these dynamics without picking brains about what's actually going on inside the program, because that's not what I really want to know. I'm more of the real magic happens when you can cheer for your teammates, even though it may be at your own expense. That's kind of how I am, because ultimately I think that's how Nebraska's got to win. It's not going to be high end talent. It's not going to be anything other than you got to work. You got to have competitive stamina, and you have to hang in there with good decisions in crunch time. That is how this team is going to win. It's not going to be elite level quarterback play. It's not going to be elite level wide receiver. They're going to be a sum of the parts team, in my opinion. You don't have. So when I look for things that lend itself to that, and I think the way that certain guys get along, right? The clusters, or if it's a Van Poppel, a Donovan Jones, a Caleb Benning, a Sierra Wright, and I'll give an offensive guy that they like, Danny King, right, at tight end. Those are things that I look for when I want to try to project, can they hang in there in crunch time? Because I think for me, it's based on how well you get along internally that gets you over the hump and those kinds of things. So I think for this team, for all the new faces and new places, I actually think chemistry and camaraderie will be huge for this football team this year with so many competitive spots.
Yeah, no question. And I heard you last week on the times that Caleb and Donovan had, and I think it felt like, as you were explaining it, that it was like, yeah, that's what happened. And he would kind of moved on to the next thing. It's like, what's next up that day? And I think
it was mat drills, and I needed to shut my mouth. So I was like, okay.
But I love that mindset too. Like you do something that is a feat that a lot of people would beat their chest about a little bit. And it's sort of like, yeah, that's what happened. And now let's try to get it better. And so I think if you can, and then if you get a room full of guys like that, where it's like, do you see what so-and-so did? And each trying to better that. But there's this friendship that goes with it, this fraternity of you're in it together, like you're saying. And I do think that's what is really successful about their mat drills is the accountability. I mean, I don't know all the ins and outs of everything that goes on there. It's sort of spoken about generally. I would lose
my mind. I'm immature now. I was immature even more between 18 and 22. But when I need you, BC, think of it like this. And you were probably the one that everybody wanted in their group, right? So think of a group project, and you got to get it done. And everybody has to carry their weight. But you need different skill sets within the group, right? Yeah. So if you need a grunt, if you need a creative guy, if you need a protocol girl, if you like, everybody kind of has to do their thing for the team to work. Like that's mat drills.
You know what they truly have over there, I believe fully, and people get so sick of this word in the off season, but they do have a culture that is real. And the reason I believe fully that is not just blah, blah, blah is because, like, even when when we have recruits, like one of our national guys will get like a quote from a player about like his top 6 schools. And sometimes it's just a line. And a lot of them, I'll be honest, can be like throwaway lines. But with the Nebraska, when it's a line from a recruit about Nebraska and why he likes it, he's always talking about the culture and the family. And it's a little different than some of the answers. And I've really taken note of that. And so I think obviously the players feel it every day that are over there, but I think people even pop their head in for a visit, sense that. And that can be really effective for this program. We'll see if it can translate to a few more wins, but I do believe fully that is on point, probably more so than a lot of places.
We're talking with Brian Christopherson, Husker 24/7. BC, I'm kind of thinking through this in real time as you and DB are kind of going back and forth about, being able to root for one another, but also being highly competitive with one another. And I'm trying to think to myself, what does that culture have to look like to enable both of those things that seem to be contrary to one another, right? And so I'm like, well, they must have to get along pretty well. I go, well, not necessarily.
Mm-hmm.
I do think there has to be a culture of a certain level of respect for one another.
Yeah.
And the reason I landed there is, we've all been like in competitive situations professionally, I think. And there's been times where you kind of, or at least me personally, I've been passed over for jobs that I wanted. And there's sometimes, if I respect the other person that gets the job, I don't have a problem with it.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
If I don't, then I'm going to feel some type of way. So I think I landed on respect. And there's not a question in there, just curious.
No.
Have any thoughts?
No, I agree with you. And I think if you, when Rule was on the podcast with Urban Meyer, he was talking about Dylan Ryla and about he's going to be like on a magazine cover and he's going to have that stuff. That's what goes with being the quarterback. But if the guys see him doing the tough stuff, not the fun, like maybe 7-on-7 or whatever, throwing on air is fun to him, but like the stuff that is the grunt work and he is putting it in just like everybody else. I thought Rule made a good point. It's like those other guys aren't going to care about the magazine cover and all that stuff. They're going to be like, this guy wants to win. That's what comes with his title, being QB1, all the other stuff. I get that, but he's going to sweat just as much as me. He's going to be there earlier than me. And yeah, I think that respect, that goes to that respect factor. It's that guy's putting in the work to win at a high level. And in fact, maybe in some cases he's doing it better than me. So I gotta take his lead, or and then it goes back and forth, and one guy puts his nose in front of the other guy, and so on. So if you can really get that going now, I do think these are pivotal weeks. They're hard to get your hands around as like a writer because you're not doing as many interviews, and they're not going to tell you everything that's going on over there. But I do think it's huge establishing what certain guys are about and how far they'll go right now, that the players are taking note of. They're taking note of each other and who does what and how they handle their business.
Yeah. So, by the way, hey, what's your name again?
My name?
Yeah.
My name's Brian.
Brian. Hey, nice to meet you, Brian. Nice to meet you, Brian. That was interesting yesterday with Coach Brad.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
I was like, what's I was very
how you doing, Brian?
I was very confused what you were
doing, Brian.
Yeah, I was too. You were throwing me for a loop there. Yeah.
He's
like, can I just drink my coffee?
He's sipping
what's
his
happening?
Folgers. He's like, this dude is a wackadoodle. So if you're looking at, and I said this last week, and I'm curious to kind of get your thoughts about Coach Simpson, and as it relates to yesterday. So Coach Simpson gave this answer yesterday or last week about this blend of young players, old players, development, and coaches that were hungry and developing, right? And he threw in the coaches, and I said to Ravi, I said, it felt unsolicited, right? But what I didn't know is they're on the heels of that 6-hour meeting or whatever they go through with the staff. So it kind of makes sense now. Then I listened yesterday. I listened to Coach Eckler talk about the reverence for Coach Rule's leadership style. I listened to Terry talk about, how Reed loves Coach Rule. There's the backstory, which I think would be good for you to get into of Coach Reed, son, and Coach Rule, which will explain that dynamic. Nudge, nudge, wink, wink, BC.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And how they have hungry coaches and teachers in that room. It's got to be intentional, right? Where I get the fact you look at the coaching staff and you think, it looks like it's better on paper.
Mm-hmm.
But then you get inside of the message of what each of these guys is saying. When you hear them, does it come across as natural to you or something that is definitely been ingrained in the short time that they're here, or both? on how they're not finished products yet?
Both. I think if you look at the guys who are quote unquote younger coaches, they've cut their teeth, all of them, with some pretty good names that they've learned from already. And I think it's already like established with all of those coaches. I mean, Terry Braden's been around freaking Andy Reid, and like seeing how that mastermind works. And I think you sort of just you catch your stride at a young age in coaching. Like, this is what it's supposed, look at what this guy's doing over here. And then you're like, oh, but this guy does this thing pretty well. And like, if you listen to Addison Williams, he talked about like his mentors, and he named off like 3 guys. And like one of them was Steve Wilkes, and just like how nobody commands a room like Coach Wilkes. And like, he takes sort of like, I think how that, like, probably the messaging that he had in certain moments to a team. And that's one thing. And so I think he does have a staff of guys who are, as you heard Eckler say, like, I'm scribbling notes left and right. The guys who know they're never the finished product. There's an understanding that guy over there, Phil Snow, is 69 years old. He's been doing this for longer than some of them are alive. I would be wise, as Phil Simpson said, to be like a parrot, and be like on that guy's shoulder, because I mean, it's just
what he could explain in 10 minutes, Snow could do in 30 seconds.
Yeah. I think it's that's a sign of wisdom, to understand there's somebody over there that knows more than you, like, and you're always searching for it. So I have to think that's a trait like that Matt Rule and Phil Snow, when they're looking at these guys that they're after, obviously. And then there's connections that are obvious, like Terry Braden is like in the same tree, like D-line, like technique wise, like T. Knighton was. And so I think they can kind of pick up where they left off. He's going to have a different personality, but I think some of the base stuff is going to be the same to guys. Addison Williams, even though he was a young coach, was at South Carolina in 2011 when John Butler was there. And so there's a relationship already built in. So all that stuff I think is useful. And this staff wasn't obviously Captain Obvious. It wasn't put together willy-nilly, but I think as you look closer at it, there is an intention to it that is can be impressive. And you would think this could really work if this meshes like your mind kind of thinks it will at kind of going through the parts of it.
BC, I'm curious. DB kind of said something in passing where he goes, on paper, you can make the argument that this coaching staff is possibly better than last year's. But when you look at it, I think we've had a chance to talk to all of the new coaches now, not including Holgerson, who we got a little bit last year, right? Is that your perception of this coaching staff, or are you just in pure wait and see mode? I guess just on paper, what's your thoughts on how this came together?
I better say wait and see right now, because this is that time of year where it's
the off season. I get it, BC.
Yeah. No, but I'm encouraged. I like how it looks. I mean, no doubt about it. It was like a shot to my veins, like, to hear Mike Eckler yesterday, like, and just like when he's up front, you can say, oh, does that translate, to getting guys fired up to play special teams and all that, and taking it one notch higher? Yeah, I think it can. I think he's just got a way about him, and I think his track record, I'm going off base just on Eckler here now, but the last 4 years at Tennessee, that's as good of a recent resume as I remember anybody coming to Nebraska with, like, for what they're being asked to do. Like, when he first go ahead.
I'm sorry. And it's not like, I love the guys that get a job when they're not looking for a job. Like, his affinity for Heupel is real.
Yeah, it is.
So to come here based on that success, BC, you're on to something. Don't undersell that.
Well, what did he say? He goes, yeah, one of the most famous coaches in the sport called me, and he just wasn't having it.
I don't undersell that.
Honestly, I'm tired. have got tired like 5 years ago or so of like, oh, this guy has this Nebraska connection and he has to do that. And so at first glance, you could be like, okay, of course they're going to hire the guy who's been here before, David City native, Blair High grad. And then you look at the numbers and it's just like, oh, they're good in this category, top 10 over here, top 10. It's impressive. And, I mean, I like the fact that he knew how many return yards they had in the punt game, like off the cuff, and how many kicks they blocked.
Corrected somebody.
1,325 and 8 blocks. And I mean, that I like a little bit of that swagger, with also a knowledge like you got to do it in a new place. You got to get these guys to go the same way you had the last guys going. And I also like that he was talking about, at Tennessee, they didn't play just starters and guys like that on special teams. It was a good chance for guys to build up roles that weren't necessarily on the front of the 2 deep. And so there's got to be some players over there who are chomping at the bit here and that. Like, I can carve a role with this guy, and I'm going to be excited to do it and play under him. So, BC, before we let you go here, just stay on.
We're keeping him.
Okay. Can I stay on?
Hopefully you don't have some sort of, coffee shop super cool interview, because I got to get you for about 5-6 more minutes.
Let's go. So when we're talking about Eckler, and I'm gonna end with a goofy question about him, but I'll stay serious here for a second. Were you at all taken in by the fact that he seemed? You mentioned the freshman and walk-on thing, because that's what he said about who played at Tennessee, right? He's like, it wasn't the starters, the freshmen and walk-ons. Were you taken? Like, did you read anything into that to say, like, hey, this isn't necessarily a talent issue that Nebraska's had on special teams. This isn't necessarily hey, they're just not putting good enough players on the field to make these plays. I took that as, hey, I can take the guys we've got. We don't have to put our starters in these positions, and we'll be able to be good at special teams. Like, am I reading too much into that? No, not at all. And the clip you played just before I came on hit on that. Just like, there's fast guys here. They can put it down in testing, just like other places that he's been. And so, I think that the door's open for young guys, and I think he thinks there's talent here. He's just figuring out who's who and all that. I think there's going to be an eagerness to. I thought this was interesting to be the return guy here. Like he was asked about Andrew Marshall specifically. Yeah. But
they tried to pigeonhole him. He's like,
he got out of that corner.
He's like, nah, we got some dudes.
Yeah, and dudes who saw that they put a couple guys in the league at that position. And so there's going to be a hunger, not that there wasn't before, but I have to think, there's 7-8 guys who are probably knocking on that door saying, I'm your man. And so that's a good thing if you can get that sort of that culture build. I do think you heard, though, there's a willingness if guys are up for it. It's a great way for a younger player to build a role and to give trust to him and say, this is your assignment. You're going to do it well. And I believe you will do it well. We're not going to take a back seat just because you're in your first or second year. So I have to think that puts a pep in the step of guys just to hear that. And maybe they already knew it, but I think it's interesting.
So BC, I'm going to get you out of here in this. Because I think Terry is in the same vein. I was telling Ravi off air, and I believe this to be very, 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 very true. Just because there's 2 guys that I have really good relationships with, randomly in the NFL, and both guys said, "I can't wait to see." Basically, I'm paraphrasing. I can't wait to see what this coach rule is about, because guys like Terry had D-line jobs that they were offered in the NFL this year. Like real. And my response is, offered, yes, could have taken the job if he wanted it. It was his. I don't even think, BC, and who knows if they'll roll tape and this will get back to Nebraska and all of a sudden Coach Rule will be like, oh, that's news to me. But I believe it to be true. So, I mean, whatever. I'm saying it out loud. And you talk about guys like Eckler, who had the relationship with Heupel, was highly successful in Tennessee. You have a guy like Addison Williams, who was highly sought after and explained the connection and then said, you know what? this is something I got to look into. Like, let me see what this Coach Rule is about. Do you think we undersell Coach Rule's leadership ability or leadership qualities to rally peers? Holgerson's here on the second callback. Snow wasn't enamored the first time and Rule's this guy. He's back. Sad is loyal to the soil. Like, we may be missing something about the belief factor.
No, you might be right. I just think about it.
I don't know.
Yeah, but I mean, even from the seat I'm in, like you go over there and, you know, there's been times where we've gone over there on a Monday and they had a bad weekend. It was a bad Saturday. And he does have a gift for communicating in a way that I think makes you believe like they can turn the corner. They're going to get past this. And I think there's a confidence that's instilled in you when you listen to him. So I can only imagine behind the scenes when he's talking to guys about a job and like what his vision is, that he communicates it at a higher level than a lot of people do. And like, just like what they're planning to do and how you would fit here. And he is a really, really gifted communicator. There's no doubt about it. I mean, we're spoiled in that respect. Just to like next week, he's going to do a press conference. And, you know, I've done this long enough, and this is not a knock on other coaches, but there've been head coaches who have walked in and done 20, 25-minute press conferences. And there's like two things in there that are kind of interesting at most. And when Rule, you know, gets up and talks each time, every answer usually turns to something that is sort of like, oh, that's a story. And you know, the way he explained it is really interesting. That's why everybody wants him on their podcast. Like all these national guys want him on there because he's such a good communicator. All that to say, I do think when he's talking to coaches about their possibilities within the program, he probably does it in such a way that it's like, man, I got to think about this. And when Eckler said, you know, he's one of the best leaders in the way he communicates, I'm taking all these notes. I took him at his word, and I think that's true. I think he's probably really impressive and just kind of interesting for a coach to listen to and say, I'm going to grow from this guy, however long I'm here.
BC, real quick, favorite saying from Eckler yesterday: "My ass, my hands," or "Donkeys don't win the Kentucky Derby."
No, you got to put in RLS.
Oh yeah, real life Shazay.
Yeah, that was probably my favorite. The last one.
I still don't know what "my ass, my hands" means.
I don't either. He said it was an old saying, and so I Googled that in the press room, which was probably dangerous. Nothing too bad came up, but
whose Wi-Fi were you on?
Yeah, they could be checking me out right now, but it did not seem like that is a saying that's used as much as Eckler suggested on that one. But I don't know. Maybe.
BC, I've got I got a little tip for you.
Look, everybody loves BC. BC, we're just going to keep you all morning, man. I'm glad you signed up for it.
DB gave you a real tip on a story. I'm going to give you a silly tip on a story. Have you heard of Mike Eckler and his piranha?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, I think we need some follow-up. I need some follow-up questions.
No, I've already even used that example in a story like a few months ago, and I felt bad about it because that's like a 30-year-old story, and I was like, oh, I'm that guy who's doing that again. But
I'm still fascinated by it. I want to know if he still has it. I want to know if he still has.
Yeah, we could probably get to the bottom of that. I learned stuff when I come on here. Like you want to know a little chicken nugget that was thrown in there by Damon. He said Danny King. Like he brought up Danny King as someone. Like, and that's the kind of nerd I am about the roster, Damon. And I was like, oh, Danny King. Like now you're gonna see that as like a bullet point in a story sometime soon.
Well, I'm glad you caught that because sometimes he just announces people have committed to the school that haven't actually done that yet. And it just slides right through. So I'm glad you picked up on that one. BC.
Damn you, BC.
We appreciate it as always.
See, you're so disarming. And you know, if you just like let me go, just give me 3 minutes. Like I'll spill the tea.
Well, people rather hear you talk than me babble. So that's fine.
It's like yin and yang. I'm not good without your ability to be who you are. So you like free me up to to ask the questions, right? It's mutual.
I'm just like I'm just like a wall, but I have I can drink coffee. Like I'm
Wait,
like
did you change mugs?
I have two. I gave myself away. I have 2 mugs. Yeah.
Jeez.
I get after it. It's no joke.
Drink up.
That's how you get 5 cups in.
Holy smokes.
BC, we appreciate it as always. We'll talk to you again soon.
Yep. Thanks, guys.
That thing was like the size of a sand pail.
I know. Well, I didn't even catch the second one. That was a good eye there. I missed that.
I have no idea what I'm talking about with Danny King, so move on.
All right, sounds good. More Hurrdat Sports Live coming up next.
We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. We You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Live.
How you doing, Kevin?
I'm doing well. Have you got all your Chiefs guys to become Nebraska fans now?
Well, that's when I was leaving the last day before the Super Bowl, the night before, they was all saying, we're going to cheer for Nebraska because you're there, but that's still a tough component to really grave in some guys with the SEC and, ACC. That's a tough one.
Back here on Hurrdat Sports Live, that's DBM Ravi Lulla here at Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill. We are joined now by Kevin Sjuts from 1011 News in Lincoln. Kevin, what's going on, man?
Good morning, guys. I think this might be potentially the third time we've talked on a Wednesday in which my children don't have school.
Hey, I got to know from the consummate dad, are you torn oh, man, I want to take advantage of the kiddos being at home. And I don't want to talk to these yahoos. I know you love parenting, man. Are you torn?
Yeah, we've kind of talked about this before. Honestly, yeah, I'm happy everybody's home today. This is great, you know.
Yeah, there you go. I knew it. Who's making breakfast?
But they've invaded my morning space. My routine is completely blown up today.
Oh, I get it. Like, that's a total thing. Come heck or high water, Kev, I was coming into the studio this morning. I'm like, if there's any way I can get this vehicle to the studio, I am not doing the show from home. Like, I'm 100% with you. Like, your space is your space.
And my routine is my routine. And, you know, like as crazy as my schedule can be, you know, once the kids are all at school every morning during the week, during the school year, you know, I'm pretty regimented. And now all of a sudden, especially with it being like today's the start of state basketball. So I'm trying to stay a little bit on routine because I know as the week goes on, it's going to get really off script. So yeah, we're just going to have to call a few audibles here today.
Omaha.
Kevin, as you're let's start with football. As you're listening to some of the assistant coaches yesterday, obviously you were in the room with Coach Braden as he is addressing guys in kind of a way that's unusual for a press conference.
Hey, Kevin. Hi, Kevin, how you doing? Hey, Kevin.
Well, you had to be ready to answer the question back because it wasn't just.
You're like, I'm good. You?
Yeah, it wasn't rhetorical, right?
It was either how you doing or what's up. There was like
nice to meet you.
A little bit of a fact. Yeah. It was a little. It puts you on your toes a little bit. You don't just get to fire the bullet and sit back. You know, you had to be ready for the ping pong there at the start. That was a little bit different and a little fun, not going to lie.
So, Kevin, I'm curious how that sort of, not just the, you know, ask everybody how they're doing and their names and everything, but I'm curious how his overall demeanor played in the room because it was pretty different from, I mean, just about everybody else we've heard from.
Yeah, that's good. That's a great question.
That is a great question. It was one of the most interactive press conferences with the head coach I think I've ever, or with an assistant coach I can ever remember, because there was the back and forth. So it wasn't just Q and A. It was a little bit of like intermixing, and it kind of created more of a social environment. I appreciated that. That was fun. And my other takeaway from Coach Braden and being in the room and talking to the local media for the first time is that dude must drink a lot of coffee or Mountain Dew or whatever it is, because he's got a ton of energy. And I think he might top Matt Rule for most words per second.
Oh, I don't know, man. Eckler is going to stress the heck out of Coach Rule because he talks a ton, and Coach Rule is like, move on. Like, I can't wait to see how that plays out.
But I mean, like, transcribing Coach Braden was really tough because he talks really fast. Matt Rule it's one of the hardest ones, you know. In my career, I don't know that anybody is as hard to transcribe as Matt Rule. And I'm not saying that because he's hard to understand. It's because he talks so fast.
Yeah, and his vocab is, he doesn't use like everyday words either sometimes.
And he sort of like pivots mid-sentence.
He's going to answer what he wants to get out, not necessarily the question.
Yeah, well, that, and he'll kind of like, he'll start down a road and then he'll kind of, there's a little bit of like squirrel there sometimes where he'll be halfway through an answer and then that will remind him of something. And it's all interesting and you love hearing it, but it'll be like, okay, how do I, if you're like transcribing it, which I'll do sometime for notes for the show, I'll be like, okay, I'm halfway through this one. I got to put like a ... until he decides to finish that point with the story somewhere in the middle. So it's a little hard to like make it a coherent if you're writing it down.
Ravi, that's 100% true. 1,000% true. Because you're right about the like, he goes on the side road and then, man, he either tells a story or he has a point or there's something fascinating he wants to share. And it's almost like, you know, when you're telling a story to your buddies and you get really excited to tell it, you know, sometimes your pitch raises a little bit and you talk a little bit faster, but that's just Coach Rule naturally. You know, I just feel like he gets a lot into, sometimes if it's 20, 25, 30 minutes, whatever it is, he can pump so much into those interviews or Q&As, however you want to term it. There's a lot of substance there. And I think part of it is because he talks fast. And now we hear Coach Braden, and he talks pretty fast too.
Kevin, let me ask you something. So you're kind of going through this whole deal, and for me, it was like teaching and being hungry, right? Like this reoccurring theme of what's next. If you were going to try to lump, the new coaches, you can go all the way back to Coach Simpson and Coach Snow, and who else did we get? They did them in threes. Who was my third? Oh, Shorts. Mm-hmm. And you go the three yesterday. Is there kind of a prevailing theme for you?
I think one of my prevailing themes is there's still there's this blending of young coaches, right? Even though that, McGuire's not there anymore, you have Shorts now. And I think, Coach Braden, he's still a little bit, I'll put him on the young side. So Coach Rule's heart of helping young coaches get opportunity and kind of carry them through and give them the start, because I know that means something to the head coach. There's still that, but then he's also surrounded himself with so much experience and so much knowledge. And I'll even put Coach Holgerson in that vein, so he's got Holgerson, he's got Phil Snow, and now he's got Coach Eckler, who, man, if you've watched Mike's stops since last coaching at Nebraska in 2010, I mean, his experiences and the different guys that he has worked for and worked with, I mean, his skill set has to be so diversified because he's gone to Indiana, he's gone to North Carolina, he's gone to USC, he's been at Georgia. They're just like, so I guess to answer your question, DB, the prevailing thought for me is there's still this element of youth and playfulness on his coaching staff, yet there's now an element of experience and just some veteran voices that I think can really serve the head man well as they get into 2025.
Mm-hmm. That's our guy, Kevin Sjuts, 1011 News in Lincoln. Kevin, we appreciate the time as always.
All right. Be safe, boys.
Hey, enjoy 10:45, right? Start time?
10:45. Here we go.
How are the streets, real quick?
Not good.
Oh, gosh. I'm kind of chomping at the bit to see Gothenburg. Should I stay in Omaha?
Hey, give yourself plenty of time. I-80.
You know I can't drive.
I-80, not good.
Okay, fair enough. I appreciate you looking out.
Appreciate it, Kevin.
First game tips off 9 a.m. Lincoln Christian's on the court here soon, girls-wise. They're number one in Class C1. They're one of the best teams in the state, regardless.
I think that
see them.
I think the ones in the top four districts all I won't say cruise, but all win. With me or no?
I'm not disagreeing. I think that's about right on.
My man.
That's our guy, Kevin Sjuts. We'll talk again soon.
See ya.
More Hurrdat Sports Live coming up next.
We will be back. will be back. You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Live.
We're back here on Hurrdat Sports Live, wrapping up hour number 2. That's DB. I'm Ravi. Lulla here at Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill, and brought to you by our friends over at Centris Federal Credit Union. Make sure you go check them out. CentrisFCU.org is the place to see all the products and services they have to offer. Everything from checking and savings. They've got mortgages, whether it's your first home or your dream home. You can refinance, look at home equity options as well. Make sure you talk to an expert, CentrisFCU.org, to find out your options today. Federally insured by NCUA.
Yeah, I want to go to something real quick, because
Yeah.
I want to talk about lifelong learning, leadership, whether you're a servant leader, whatever, right? Because clearly, some of these guys that are changing jobs and want to come to work for Coach Rule, he has some characteristics that they gravitate towards. I got to give my guy some credit, and it's not just because he's my guy or anything like that. I just he's a guy that I respect a ton, because I think he's been in some tough situations. He's a high-level trainer, high-level thinker. He's a great dad. Coach Lloyd said something here I want to get to. He said, Rule has done a better job this round with selection of coaches. Veteran OC should make a real impact. Building real team chemistry this year will make the Huskers dangerous if it all comes together. Now, I'm going to keep in mind, there's 3 things in here that I love. Number 1, I always love when somebody can pull their own emotions out of a situation to assess a situation. Right? It would be easy with somebody that's had a son that was that talented, that it didn't go kind of the way that you envisioned, that everybody hoped, that can come back and assess something objectively. So that, number 1, I love. Number 2, I think he's right. There was a learning mechanism that had to happen from having difficult conversations. Number 3, I think he's right with leadership and teaching. Because if the culture, I told you, if the culture is set and you get the right staff, then he becomes dangerous. But I got to give Coach Lloyd some credit. And because I know this firsthand, because it was a West Side thing, it's a Jalen Lloyd thing, he's a really good player thing. There were really hard conversations. And then sometimes Coach Rule or the staff would come back and ask my opinion. And I got to give Coach Lloyd some credit. His willingness as a parent to advocate for his child and have real hard sit-downs with real hard conversations worked. It absolutely worked. And it was almost, you could look at it like it was almost at his kiddo's expense.
In what sense?
He's not in Nebraska.
No, I know, but
you have to have the conversations.
How did the conversations work?
So that's between them.
Okay.
What I'm going to tell you is hard truths, because I always say this in conflict resolution. I say this in my house. I say this with you. I say this with players. I say this with my staff. I say this when people are in the chat or phone calls that I don't love, where I'm like, okay, is there anything that they're saying that there's truth to it?
Yeah, eat the meat, spit out the bones.
Eat the meat, spit out the bones, right? That's me 101, because I always want to try to get better. So I think if you can eat the meat and spit out the bones, that's a real lifelong learner. And you don't get to have any sort of success or grow or mature if you're not willing to take some things and digest them even if you don't want to hear them. So I think on both sides, with some of the conversations that Coach Lloyd and Coach Rule had to have in order to get where they are, don't think, Coach, that stuff like that wasn't heard, because that was one of the more critical players, in my opinion.
Sure.
Outside of Borkature, that departed. When you talk about guys with not only upside but productivity, and
that were going to be desirable by other power schools.
Yep. Had no problems finding
kind of
spots.
Similar but different circumstances on how and why they left, it seemed like.
Similar position group.
Yeah, pass catchers. Yeah.
And similar to Coach Rule having to evaluate relationships within his staff with how it correlated, that has kind of spurred him on to better the staff this time around. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I also appreciate, and I don't know Coach Lloyd like you do. I only just met him the once and appreciate him interacting with us here on the chat. But I do appreciate, because it'd be really easy for him to have a bad taste in his mouth about about Nebraska, about Coach Rule, about all of it, right? Like his son came in, like they trusted the coaching staff to kind of develop him and turn him into the player they thought he could be.
Yeah.
Obviously, it didn't work out the way anybody wanted, right? It'd be really easy to not feel great about Nebraska and the staff.
Yep.
But to come in here and be able to say, like, hey, I think he's done a really good job kind of reworking things, and seems like he's looking forward to what it's going to look like at Nebraska.
That's a big deal for me. I
like, that's hard.
Not surprised though. I know the guy. I know him as a guy.
Yeah, like that's hard to do, and that I really respect that. I guess that's all I'm trying to say is I really respect.
And you look at how he's built the staff, which we'll get into coming up.
Yeah.
Which is why Snow and Holgerson are up here again today, because we didn't get to it yesterday. Going to get into the dynamics. And is it fact or fiction? Do you get the sense after yesterday and all this that you've heard from Nebraska staff, are they a developmental program or no? Is it are they fixing holes through the portal or no? Because I think there's a very clear message they're sending.
I think so too.
I'm just not sure we're picking up what they're putting down.
We'll get that next year on Hurrdat Sports Live.
Welcome to Hurrdat Sports Live.
Well, the biggest difference is this level, I'm able to develop more. And I'm talking about a stance when I first got here. Get off the ball, hand placement. You know, when you get a guy that's been in the league for 6 years, they already have those components in their play. So I think that's the bigger difference of development and really the relationship part, you know, being a father figure to him, you know, sometimes in the NFL, and it happens too in college, but you have a guy for 6 weeks, 4 weeks, and they're gone in the free agency world. So that's really big. I think the biggest difference is true development, which I'm all about.
Welcome back, Hurrdat Sports Live, presented by Centris Federal Credit Union. That's DB. I'm Ravi, Lulla, and the million-dollar question, DB: are they a developmental program?
I keep saying this. This is totally deductive reasoning.
That's why the D-line coach is here, apparently.
Hey, man, I'm willing to listen.
Yeah,
I'm willing to listen, and I get it. I can be I can have great emotions without being emotional.
Sure.
But I this whole time I push back on this whole narrative of a philosophical shift. Because while you did plug holes going in the portal,
sure,
I've said it from day one. Look at the portal profiles of the guys they're bringing in. There's still a developmental component. There's still no finished products. They're still about bringing in competition. There's still
finished products, but yeah, we landed on 2 yesterday. Spindler and Key as finished, ready-made. But you're right. The rest of the class?
Right.
Yeah.
So I still think he's not willing to part with his philosophy of playing the long game.
So let me ask you this, because let's do some deductive reasoning here, right?
I am going to listen to you.
So Nebraska, do you think Nebraska is consistently going to be able to recruit 4 or 5-star guys out of high school or 4 or 5-star guys out of the portal? Like the top end ready-made guys. Is Nebraska consistently going to be able to recruit those guys? Either way.
What's the number? A guy or two? Like
no, I mean like that's the majority of their team.
No, because that's not who they no.
Okay, so if the answer to that is no, what's the only option left?
To develop.
To be a developmental program, right? So like I don't know that it's that.
I'm just trying to figure out where it came from.
I think it's the difference between how Coach Rule talked about the portal last year, the year before.
I said yesterday, I think we think he's saying something different than he is.
Right. I think it's mostly just the number of guys. It was a large portal class this year comparatively to last year's.
Surprised to hear. I don't know if we have it.
I got 16 this year?
Yep. Hold that thought.
Okay.
Shane, did we cut up the individual clip of Coach Addison talking about the DB room? I'm looking now.
You're looking live.
You are looking live. There are 2 group chats. So let me say this while we search for it. He said, yeah, there are a lot of young guys in this room where I feel good about the foundation.
Mm-hmm.
Does that sound ready-made to you?
No.
Sound developmental?
Yeah.
I think we missed the mark. I do. And the more I listen to it, started with Coach Simpson a couple weeks ago, talking about the staff. I think we got enough veteran guys. I think we got young, hungry guys. I think we have a nice combination. I still think, what did we hear yesterday from 2 of the 3 coaches about hiring teachers?
Yeah. It's one of the first things he said.
And then he talked about playing young guys. Like they're giving you the answers to the test without us having to panic.
Yeah. I mean, if Nebraska's going to be successful, and I think this is.
Well, I just want to know like where we kind of developed this narrative over the last month and a half of them moving off of the vision.
Yeah, I literally just
and I don't know.
Yeah.
So it's not like, well, hey, I'm gonna fight you. I'm just 888-638-4876.
I think it's 2 things.
Well, holler at your boy.
I think it's numbers. Number 1, cutting down the roster size. I think people assumed if you're cutting down the roster from 140 to 105, you're not going to be able to take flyers on guys, which is what we felt like he was doing some in the first couple of years, which I think he wouldn't call it that probably, but taking some developmental prospects that you didn't really know how it was going to turn out. That's what I call a flyer. He probably calls it something else. But I think that's part of it where you think, hey, with 30, 40, 50 fewer guys, you probably can't take some of those.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's number one. Number two, I do think it's just the sheer number and aggressiveness they were in the portal this year.
Is it a lot?
It's almost twice as much as last year. I mean, it's 9 to 16. Like and one of those was Mac Markway, who just kind of showed up, right? So it's not like that was a guy that they went out of their way to get. He just kind of showed up at Nebraska.
2 special teams guys.
Yeah, 2 specialists.
You were mad that we needed to get better.
No, I'm not mad about.
I'm not you.
No,
as in you.
The Royal We.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a. Did you know that's a show?
The Royal We.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a show.
No, I get what you're saying, and I do think.
So you're down to 13.
I do think 2 things can be true at once. You can plug holes in the portal.
You're down to 13.
Yeah.
I think we jumped the gun.
I think you can plug holes in the portal and still be a developmental program. Because here's the thing, you're going to miss on some guys, and with a smaller roster, you're going to have to fill those gaps through other means, right? Because you're not going to be able.
You just have to be more efficient.
You're not going to be able to load rooms up to the same degree. So if you miss on a couple guys that you thought were going to be X, Y, and Z within 2 years, then you're going to have to go backfill some of those rooms. I mean, the offensive line is a really good example of this, right? You were hoping to have a healthy Teddy Prohaska and kind of know what you were getting from him at this point in his career.
Yeah.
That hasn't been the case. Not really any fault of his own. It's not like you missed on him. When we've seen him, he's been good, has been healthy. So you have to backfill and try and go get an Elijah Pritchett to fill a spot at tackle, right? You have some guys that maybe aren't quite ready in the middle of the line where you need another guard. You go and you get Rocco Spindler from Notre Dame because you're like, I like these guys. I like this room. I kind of want one more year to develop them. I kind of want one more year to get their bodies right.
Hold that thought. Shane.
Did you find the cut?
Find Williams.
Okay.
Clip 3.
Got it.
There's a lot of young talent on this roster. They've done a really good job recruiting over the last few years. When you got guys that are big, you got guys that are fast. And I know I heard Coach Terry talking about the fundamentals of things. That's something that we're really, really harping on, and development of players and teaching guys how to play football. But I do think we have a good core of guys that we can develop.
Listen, one more time, Shane, for those in the back.
There's a lot of young talent on this roster. They've done a really good job recruiting over the last few years. When you got guys that are big, you got guys that are fast. And I know I heard Coach Terry talking about the fundamentals of things. That's something that we're really, really harping on, and development of players and teaching guys how to play football. But I do think we have a good core of guys that we can develop.
Do you think they're moving? That's unsolicited.
Mm-hmm.
Because the question was, what have you noticed?
Yeah. And his answer was basically, we got a good young core of guys we can develop.
How many times did he use the D word? You always got to give him the D. How many times did he use it?
At least twice.
Okay. I think, again, I'd like to reiterate, I think we jumped the gun.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think we jumped the gun.
I think there's a lot of.
There is no real philosophical shift.
I would agree.
I
think there's some practical.
There's the learning the. It's like I always tell you,
There's
right?
some
If you want me,
shifting.
if you want me to be a rich, like, I will play any game you want to play.
Yeah, just tell me the rules.
I just want to know the rules.
And the rules have shifted on him.
I think the rules have shifted.
So his practical approach has had to shift some.
But he's not getting off
philosophically.
But he's not going to get off the core.
He's the same person. He's
still playing the long game.
Here's part of the other thing that I think we're maybe missing a little bit.
That's not true, Travis. That's not true. I do like development, though.
I do think there's a thing that we're missing here a little bit is the way college football is today, right? We saw Kurt Signetti come in, bring a bunch of his guys from James Madison, be competitive right away. Is that a roster that would have been competitive without guys that he brought in from his previous stop? Or as competitive? They might have been okay.
Yeah, not really.
But they're a lot different if he's not bringing those guys in.
You
right?
know what I think would be interesting? You
What's
don't
that?
want to do it because it defeats the purpose because you know the answer. We go back and talk to our Indiana guy in Bloomington from when we were at Indian Creek last year.
Mm-hmm.
That interview is eerie.
Yeah.
With how Indiana played out.
Yeah.
Just is. Hey, can those guys work? Hey, this guy's pretty good. Oh, man, I like Surratt. Oh, what about this? Well, if he can get this and the schedule breaks right. Like, it was It's eerie.
I think
if you go back and listen to that.
And I think I asked the question. I go, hey, are a bunch of guys from JMU better than Indiana was last year? And I wasn't asking it facetiously.
Yep.
That's what I meant.
Yep.
And it turns out they were, right? Not just better than they were last year, but better than a lot of the rest of the Big Ten too. And so I look at this and I go, okay, Coach Rule obviously didn't have that advantage because he'd been in the NFL for 3 years.
Yep.
So when you're looking at the roster, the way everybody else has sort of backfilled in the last few years when they've gotten jobs has been by bringing guys. Look at what Lincoln Riley did when he went to USC. How many of those Oklahoma guys and commits came with him? A lot. We forget about Caleb Williams and the whole thing, right? Like there was a lot that happened there. That's not something Coach Rule had. So he's sort of had to adjust on the fly to changing rules and trying to backfill a roster with experience that he wasn't able to bring from his previous stop. I'm sure he would have loved it if he could have brought Christian McCaffrey with him. That would have been great for everybody. That wasn't really on the table. So you go in and you have, okay, so what's the way to backfill a roster in a way when you're not allowed to, or when you don't have guys from a previous stop to bring with you? We're kind of seeing it now. One, he relied on the older guys that were on the roster already. But in year 3, there's a little gap between the guys that were on the roster already aging out and the guys that they've recruited in the first couple of years aging into the roles they need them to be.
Shane, clip 8 from Coach TB talking about development at this level.
Okay, let me get it here.
Yeah, Coach TB, clip 8, development.
Got it.
Well, the biggest difference is this level I'm able to develop more. And I'm talking about a stance when I first got here. Get off the ball, hand placement. When you get a guy that's been in the league for 6 years, they already have those components in their play. So I think that's the bigger difference of development and really the relationship part, being a father figure to them. Sometimes in the NFL, and it happens too in college, but you have a guy for 6 weeks, 4 weeks, and they're gone in the free agency world. So that's really big. I think the biggest difference is true development, which I'm all about.
Shane, the next two are going to come from Coach Eckler. Coach Eckler, clip 10.
I saw exactly what we've done for 4 years at the last place I was at. And so if anybody wants to comment on what we did at the last place I was at, it's fairly ignorant because you're not in the weeds. You don't know who we're playing. You don't know all the different dynamics. So for somebody on the outside, that's why no offense, but I don't read anything y'all write because you're not in the weeds. And I don't mean it out of disrespect at all. But you don't know everything that's going on, And so for me to comment on what happened here would be ignorant.
Shane,
I wasn't here.
Shane, clip 11.
In this profession,
I'm just going to build on this.
In life in general, every single day as a human being, as a father, as a journalist, you're getting better or worse. We never stay the same, right? So if you're built to be the best, then you're always constantly looking to improve every single day you wake up. And so every day in my life, it's all about continuous improvement.
Shane,
and
follow that up. Lastly, clip 3 from Coach Eckler.
Think about his path. Think about started off coaching D-line. Then he went linebackers, special teams coordinator. Then he makes, a logical progression. He's a defensive coordinator. Another logical progression, he's a quarterbacks coach. Then he's offensive line coach for the Giants when they won the Super Bowl. Then, who does that?
Maybe I'm hearing what I want to hear, but when I hear him talk about, by he I mean Coach Eckler, playing young guys and the number of young guys that they played at Tennessee and the natural progression of how to turn and run as a wide receiver as it equates to blocking in space, or to be a young defensive player and to be on one of the special teams units and be ready for the big time, or the follow-up of the natural progression as he talks about somebody that's doesn't seem to be in the same scope of talk with Coach Rule's assent. All that screams to me is development.
Yeah.
The next logical progression to maximize the space. It seems like to me, and listen, I'm going to take some pushback. If you got it, 888-638-4876. Can you get – is there a different way for me to look at it, or am I just hearing what I want to hear?
No, I don't think there is. I don't think we're disagreeing on this. I'm hearing mostly what you're hearing as well. The one thing that's stuck out to me there about young guys playing on special teams is, and I don't, maybe this isn't groundbreaking, I guess I've just never really thought of it before, is I generally think of young guys playing on special teams. I'm like, oh, it's a good way to get some young guys onto the field. But I don't really follow that any further with why that matters. And I think yesterday when I'm listening to Eckler, I sort of landed on, and you can tell me if this is right or not, or how you process it, but I sort of landed on, oh, special teams isn't just good because you actually just get guys on the field and they run around or whatever. It's an opportunity in sort of a limited sample size for guys to execute and make plays so that when they have to go out and be on the field in larger sample sizes, it's not the first time they're experiencing that.
Yep.
And that's not really a connection I'd ever made before.
Well, where did the young guys that played in the secondary in the bowl game first start?
And on special teams.
Playing special teams.
And I understood that progression just sort of, oh, well, you start on special teams, it's a more limited role, and then you maybe get to play. But I never really thought of it as, hey, you get used to making plays and executing.
Why do you think he didn't just acquiesce to the Marshall question about punt returners?
Sure, because he wanted to make sure everybody had an opportunity. And I don't think he knows yet.
And he didn't know. He
doesn't know yet.
He didn't know enough.
Yeah.
Right. So, the more I hear those things, the more I'm convinced.
Because if you're not a developmental program, you just be like, oh, we brought this guy in to be our punt returner. He's our punt returner, right? You don't go, hey, there's 6-7 guys knocking on my door want to return punts. We're going to see who can return punts. Like, that's the difference. If you're just a program that's going to go fill holes through the portal and you're not going to develop anybody, then you're going to go out and you're going to be, hey, that guy's my punt returner. We're going to go get him. This guy's my left guard. I'm going to go get him. This guy's my right tackle. I'm going to go get him. You don't still play out the competitions.
Listen, 2 good questions back to back that kind of fit.
Yeah.
Okay, KP says, hey, DB and Ravi, when the first staff got here, when Rule was hired, do you believe that they were more focused on winning games than developing the players? I feel it was winning games. Hold that thought.
Okay.
Now, I like Lee's perspective because he's kind of the contrarian with how we've looked at 105.
Yeah.
Oh, you're already vibing?
Yeah.
Okay. Because Lee then says, if you go from 150 to 105, you have more time to spend developing those you have. We tend to look at it as a negative.
Yeah.
So now that, to KP's question, that you have fewer guys in the third year, do you think the emphasis has changed or it's just more concentrated?
I think it's just more focused. Because here's what Lee's talking about.
That's funny. Those things came back to back.
Here's what Lee's talking about, right? It's like if you're, and I don't really know anything about guns, so this is a weird metaphor, but let's say you're not a very good shot. You may want a shotgun because you get a spread, right? You're going to take a lot of shots at it. You're going to get
like buck as opposed to.
Yeah, like you're going to get a shotgun spread, right? As far as you're going to have lots of chance to hit something because it's not a real concentrated bullet path, right?
Okay.
You got a kind of a scatter shot. Whereas if you're a sniper, you're going to get one shot, but you're going to be dialed, right? That's the difference between the 150 and the 105 to me. 150, you're taking a lot of bites of the apple, right? You're giving yourself a lot of opportunities with a lot of different guys to say, oh, maybe this guy will make it, maybe this guy will make it, maybe this guy will make it. With the 105, it's a little more concentrated. You're going to laser focus in on the guys that you think you can develop. And with the staff that you think is a good teaching staff, that's probably better, right?
As KP asked the first question, I think no.
You don't think they were focused more on winning?
Mm-mm.
I don't either, really. I don't know if he put the right staff together first.
Yeah, so that's the thing.
Like, he could have missed a little and still be trying to do the same thing.
So I think if there was a mistake made, it was not guys necessarily cutting their teeth, but it was you had guys that hadn't had success on the field with guys that hadn't had proven success off the field. So it was kind of a weird blend.
Strange balance.
both were learning on the fly.
Yeah. Where now you've got a Holgerson, you've got a Phil Snow,
Yep.
you've got an Addison Williams who's been a defensive
that's kind of what
coordinator.
I think.
You've got a John Butler who's been a high-level NFL coach.
Because you know what?
What's that? You got Mike Eckler who's been one of the best special teams coaches in the game.
Yes or no?
Okay.
This for our listeners too. Could you see Dana Holgerson coaching Heinrich Harburg and Jeff Sims in year one?
No.
It doesn't seem like that would fit, right?
No.
So, and
if Dana
Holgerson I think timing matters.
Sure.
But to KP's question,
well,
some of it I think was kind of a victim of circumstance.
How so?
Because I think if you're not used to winning and you don't have proven guys, you have to focus on what you're good at.
Sure.
And maybe you're not afforded the luxury to fast forward to winning. Sometimes you just have to get your mind right.
Yeah.
Before you can go to battle. You know what I mean?
I will say,
and I know that probably drove fans crazy.
The one thing I will say about Ken that I think is worth bringing up, I do think there was a part of Coach Rule that understood
how important it was to get the monkey off your back.
That 2-10 in year one wasn't gonna fly.
I feel you. I would agree. That's what makes the question tough.
Yeah, it is. It's a real question because the kind of like gut answer is like, no, they're always focused on.
I'll.
There's a part of me.
I'll entertain that.
There's a part of me that thinks Matt Rule understood that 2-10 was not going to fly.
I understand that.
One. Like just hard stop, absolutely not.
And he had said when he first got here, this feels a little more like
year two. And it played out a little bit more like year two. Now, I think we assumed that meant they were ahead of schedule. Maybe he meant that's how he was going to approach it because he knew they needed to win more than 1 or 2 games the first year at Nebraska.
I got a win.
I will say the other thing.
That's just weird how those came in like back to back.
Boom, boom.
And they, yeah.
Yeah, I do think there's also, like, because you asked the question about Holgerson, right? They probably get somebody other than Jeff Sims if he's the guy.
Yeah, I don't know, though.
Or they would have tried to.
You still have time, right?
Yeah.
You still have time constraints. Again, if I'm not very appealing or people don't like me aesthetically, I can want to date the good-looking girl. She's got to like me, too.
Oh, I'm not saying it would have been a high-profile guy that would have brought in.
You know what I mean? Like she's got to like me too.
No, I totally understand that. I agree. But if you're Dana Holgerson, you're coming from the Mike Leach tree, right? That's sort of, and I get their different systems, but there's this extended history of taking pretty underwhelming quarterbacks, but they got what you were trying to do and putting that guy in a position. I'm not saying it would have gone any better. I don't know. But what I am saying is,
like how could Coach Holgerson not push Cam Ward's buttons? Like that's a thing.
Sure, yeah.
So the blank slate thing is kind of hard.
It is hard. No, I agree.
Because clearly with Cam wanting to redshirt after he had played, something was amiss.
I'm just saying, if you're bringing in year,
and I'm going back to Cam at Houston.
If you're bringing in year one Dana Holgerson. Like that's the guy you start with. I just assume they would have gone after somebody with a different skill set. Personally, I don't think it. And again, would it have gone any better? I have no idea. But what I do think is true now is you've got this you brought up the kind of the blend of types of coaches on the staff, right?
I think it's paramount
because I think Phil Snow. You look at that guy and you go, "Oh, that's a developmental guy." Right? That's a guy that's been with Coach Rule. He knows how this goes. I don't know that I, on first blush, would think of Dana Holgerson as a developmental guy, but then look at all the guys that we think of with Dana Holgerson and where they actually came in as recruits.
Yeah.
Like Steve Slayton and Pat White and Stedman Bailey and like those guys.
Stedman Bailey.
You like that?
Wow.
Tank Dell. These weren't guys that were highly recruited.
Yeah.
The only one that he got that was a dude.
And Kobe right on cue.
Yeah, Tank Dell.
I don't get
Stedman.
I don't think Tavon Austin was still under him.
Good pull.
The only guy that was super highly recruited under Holgerson, I think it was Holgerson at this point, was Noel Devine.
Yeah,
that's the only one
who fell in their laps because of what he had been through. Remember you?
Yeah,
you were Notre Dame was out and Florida State was out.
Yeah, and he had the tie with Dion. He kind of fell in their laps, and for what he was as a recruit, was a little underwhelming.
Yeah,
if we're being honest, like he was good.
No, he was legit.
But for what he was as a recruit and the
He
hype,
just happened to be Shane's size.
yes, he was very tiny.
Okay.
But you don't like my first blush isn't Dana Holgerson's a developmental guy, but when you think about how he's won, it's been developmental.
Yeah.
He's never gone out and gotten the best guys. That's not really how he's operated. He's gotten guys that fit really well into what he does. That's the Dana Holgerson model. It's fit and develop.
I think yesterday was kind of the exclamation point.
Yeah.
I'd been intimating it. I'd been saying it. I think we're off. I think we're saying something different than what he's saying.
Yeah.
Even though, and I was willing to say, no, they did. Snow said it. Hey, we had to adjust. Coach Rule said, hey, we had to adjust. But I don't think it meant getting off the plan.
Yes, correct.
I don't. I'm like,
again,
I think we jumped the shark, right? You know, the reason that we're not talking about the offseason as much in terms of being player specific?
What's that?
It's not because we don't care, and it's not because we don't know the players. Like, if you're a fan and you want to know about
Deshaun
McCullough,
Andrew Marshall,
plenty of tape. You want to know about Pritchett? Plenty of tape.
Rocco
Spindler, plenty of tape.
Dane Key.
That's not it.
Yeah.
That's not it. That's lazy, and it's selling the fan base short. Do you know what it really is?
What?
I think number one, the lead horse in moving on and just playing football has come from the staff. Hey, listen, stop hyping guys up.
Yeah.
Let's just get better at football. Stop believing your own hype. Shavers, hey, knock it off. Freshmen, knock it off. Let's just get better. So they've downplayed success.
Well, because we saw that.
They've downplayed hype. They want to. It's not chasing three. It's like just win games. There's no one-loss score jinx. There's no uniform jinx. You know what losing close games is? It just means we're not good enough.
Play better. Play better.
It just means we're not good enough.
Yeah.
So you can see the philosophical shift, like, let's just do us better. Right?
Yeah.
So the players don't give you much because the staff won't allow them to give much.
Yeah.
Hey, get your ass off TikTok, right? You want TikTok? I got a TikTok workout for you.
Yeah.
Like, knock it off.
Yeah.
Okay. So in return, the fans are like, well, the staff is kind of downplaying it. And there's this silent minority in the fan base that's like, oh, here we go, winning the offseason again. Off-season champions. So they're not buying it until they see it.
Yeah.
So they're not all in.
Yeah.
It's not because we don't know or understand the roster. It's because we're guarded on both ends of the spectrum.
Yeah, it's wait and see.
Right? Which is okay.
That's fine.
Just means we got to be better at what we do, but it's not for anything fancier than, oh my gosh, there's too much roster turnover. We can't follow it. That's not it. Like, there's plenty of people. Like, ask some of these guys some questions about personnel. There are guys and gals out here
dialed in
that understand personnel.
Also, I'm going to say
they know a receiver from Cal. Trust me.
Yeah.
It's just they're not going in yet because if there's recency bias, hey, we heard the same thing about Nair.
Yeah.
We heard the same thing about, but like, I don't mind the wait and see approach.
Yeah.
I'm not judging that, but let's not act like the fan base doesn't have the wherewithal to understand what's out there. And it's not because there's some roster shift, because as we've heard with each coach in some form or fashion, they talk core, they talk development, they talk blend, they talk core, they talk blend, they talk development. All of them. This isn't some philosophical flip that we need more ready-made guys because we're panicking. That's not it.
I'll say the same thing.
It's not it.
I'll say the same thing I do almost every time this comes up. Winning the offseason is a hell of a lot better than the alternative.
Yeah.
Doesn't get you any wins in August, September, but it's a lot better than the alternative.
And I don't think the fan base is saying lose the offseason.
No.
I think they're keeping their feelings in check.
Which is fine. Wait and see mode is totally fine.
It's cool.
But don't complain about doing well in the offseason. I don't want to hear it anymore.
Wow.
That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla. More Hurrdat Sports Live coming up.
We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Live.
It's truly, it's a day-to-day, just they're putting it on film, you know, I mean, and I've got to get a feel for them, get a feel for their skill set. And like I told these guys from day one, said, fellas, right now I'm coming in new. You guys all have a clean slate, a new beginning, but I promise you this, the standard here is to be the best. And that's what the standard is. So we got to giddy up and go, or we're going to find people to bring in that are going to hit that standard. And that's just RLS, real life shizay.
You heard it here first. Hurrdat Sports Live, real life shizay. DB.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I can't wait.
How do you? Go ahead.
No, man. Go.
How do you think Eckler plays over the course of like a season?
I don't know. So I that's funny because I kind of was gonna say I will be curious to see, just knowing Coach Rule's personality, how much Coach Eckler talks will play with Coach Rule.
RLS, real life shize.
And they both are going to have to learn one another.
Yeah,
because Coach Rule is going to be about that action.
Yeah,
and Coach Eckler is very authentic, and a lot of his action is based on what he says. So how fast can Coach Eck convey his enthusiasm?
Yeah,
without killing the buzz.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting because
I'm kind of curious.
I do think there's a certain. I mean, obviously he's been highly successful, right? So he knows how to connect with people in a way that is sort of have transcended stops and transcended the years. And he's connected with a lot of different types of people, right? You know, Will Compton rides for Mike Eckler the same way that Levante David rides for Mike Eckler. And I would say those seem to be pretty different personality types, just to use a couple Nebraska guys for sure. And
who both approach their craft very differently.
Right. Yeah. And so I kind of use that as a template of, okay, maybe he comes off a certain way, but obviously something works there in the way he connects with people. Obviously something's worked there in the way he's connected with people across a multitude of programs and in doing a job that's not inherently sexy, right? Special teams coordinator.
Well, here it is.
Now it is.
No. Here it is. Here it is. Nebraska, from winning to losing to 71 punt return. No, special teams has always been a big deal at Nebraska.
I meant more. Sorry, let me clarify. I meant more when you're a player. Being a special teams player isn't inherently sexy.
Correct.
Right. Like that's not generally where you want to end up. There's a couple sexy spots.
You mean start? It's not. Okay. Yeah. You mean end up.
You don't want to end up.
You don't mind starting there.
Yes.
Because once upon a time, like that was the gold standard.
Yeah, it's like, hey, let's get up.
Man, if I could I just want to.
And I don't know if that is the gold standard now. I think we want it to be. I think we're working on it, but I don't know if that's the gold standard for players now.
Yeah,
but I do think there's this. It's not like if Eckler's interesting, right? Because like that's kind of where he stood out in college, and that's basically the only place he stood out in college was on special teams.
Yeah, because I'm just telling you,
right?
When Corey Dixon graduated,
yeah,
and there were times I would be back there with him,
mm-hmm.
and I was a pup and he was a senior. But then when me and Clinton got to go back there together, like that was a big deal. We had like this greeting we did, and we would like dap up. Like
I do think being a returner is a little different from a lot of the other spots. Though.
I don't know. You
personally,
you don't remember Lance Gray or some of these guys that like prided themselves on ruining your life.
Yeah, no, I get that.
Aaron and Matt Penland, where it was like these guys would come down, and it was a smoke show. Phil Ellis.
I remember Phil Ellis.
Listen, Phil Ellis got started on special teams.
Mm-hmm.
He was a certifiable nightmare. And it was like, oh, fudge, man. We're going live. Is this 2s versus 1s or 1s versus 2s? Because wherever Ellis is.
Trying to avoid that.
I'm out. And he's kick coverage. Yeah. I'm KOR.
Yeah.
So it's like, hey, who's got 41? Hey, wedge. Now, make sure you peel back.
Help me out here.
Peel back.
Help me out here.
Okay, that guy's going to be coming out. You know what I mean? So
sure.
I think it's a mindset more than.
And I don't think it's a mindset Nebraska's had.
But
the team.
People like to hate on Foley, but I'm going to tell you, just having seen it, I do think the special teams was fairly intense. And I think they worked it a ton.
That's fair.
I do. Now, when you can't get the battery right.
Yeah. There's nothing else going to look very good.
It's just not.
Yeah.
It's just not.
So I do think it's a challenge.
Not making excuses. It's an explanation, and there's ownership that it wasn't good enough. So
yeah, that's why Mike Eckler's here, right?
Yeah.
Like there's a
correct.
Like it's only an excuse if Ed Foley was still here.
100%.
Right? Like that's
yeah.
You know what I mean?
You said it better.
And so I do think I think it's a challenging job because you've got a lot of guys that want to end up doing something else than what they're doing right now. And that's always sort of a difficult place to be where you're like, hey, I have to do this thing that I don't necessarily want to be doing.
Mm-hmm.
I have to do that at a super high level before I get to do the thing I want to do.
Did you catch the note about guys banging down his door They're the guy
to be the returners.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That it wasn't like that a year ago.
Sure.
And no disrespect to Coach Brown or anybody else, but I'm just saying, like,
yeah,
it appears to be more wide open with a blank slate, so more guys feel like
they've got
being
shot.
vocal and speak. Yeah,
yeah.
It's like I don't know. It's just
it sort of seemed like they had their mind made up pretty early on who the guys were going to be as far as returners.
I remember having a conversation in Columbus with Coach Brown, and he was talking about next year.
Mm-hmm.
And I understood what he was saying because you have some established guys, even though I didn't love the punt return game. And he says, I mean, next year, from a level of trust, and I mean, man, you've done a good job. He's right there. And I'm like, next year?
Yeah, why not this year?
In my head.
Yeah, no,
but I can be.
Well, and you've got this weird dual role, right?
Yes.
Former player.
Yes.
You're a coach.
Who did the job.
Your former player who did the job.
Yep.
Coach.
Yep.
Who coaches the job.
Yep.
You're an analyst for the team.
Yep.
And the dad of a guy who wants the job. Right? Like, that's a weird place for you to be. But, I mean, you know how many times I thought last year I was like, I've seen Caleb do better than that. Because I have. That's a guy that I look at, but I also understand, high school to college, it's different. I get it. But I'm like, I don't even get to see it. Like, I don't even get to – because that's my big thing. And this is true basketball. I've said it with Creighton all year, which they mollywop Seton Hall yesterday, whatever, it's fine. Like,
I don't know, Kobe. I don't know.
What's the question?
I get it. That's what everybody says. I don't know. Kobe says Andrew Marshall's going to return punts this coming season.
I hope somebody does.
Somebody will.
He says he's going to return a punt for a touchdown. I hope somebody does. I would love that. That'd be terrific.
Last time was
it
Gross?
Swift? Swift had one. Against Texas?
Was Swift post? Oh, yeah, the shorty.
Yeah, he got one, didn't he?
Yeah. I should probably know that.
Is that Swift or is that Riley?
Did
Brandon Riley get one?
Oh, God. Why you bring up one of my faves? Well, both of them are, actually.
I think there was somebody who got one that I think it was against Texas when it was under Mike Riley. I'm almost positive. Swift would have been too early.
Was it Spielman?
No, I remember a white guy.
Well, Swift was Lubbock, though. That's a long time ago.
Yeah, so it's not Swift. I was thinking Riley. I think it's Brandon Riley.
Are we going back to TT?
Maybe.
Why don't I know that?
QB one says Swift had one against Vautech.
I
don't know if that's
no,
true.
it wouldn't have been that wouldn't have been Swift. That'd have been Riley.
Yep.
There was one in the late Pelini, early Mike Riley era that I'm not placing correctly right now. But
Yep, Kobe's got it. I thought it was
Spielman had one in 16.
Yeah.
I
think JD might have been last.
That might be true. He had 77 against Bethel.
I was gonna say HBCU.
Yeah.
I couldn't remember, but
which one? Yeah. But no, I think it's an interesting spot to be.
How do these guys are they just are they just
like
Googling?
I don't know. Some of them probably have it in the Rolodex.
I mean, because I'm good with recall, but they're like getting the number. 49 yards, 77 yards, 16 and a half.
Yeah.
It's pretty impressive. If you don't know, just ask. I don't know.
Maybe I am thinking all the way. I don't know. Anyway,
I don't remember Riley, though. But I do remember.
Maybe I'm thinking Swift. I don't remember. I might be confused.
It's black guys you think all look alike.
Well, when it's receivers, it's like.
And I do believe they both wore
87. Yeah. So that's. Give me a little credit there.
Yeah,
I almost said Hasselbrook.
Maybe that's where the 87
I almost said
yarder
Troy
came
Hasselbrook, but he
from.
was 89.
Yeah. No, so I mean, it's obviously.
Do you remember Troy Hasselbrook?
Not really.
Yeah, he's fast.
When was he?
Old. Troy had to be early 2000s.
Yeah, not really. That's not ringing a bell.
Maybe late 90s, early 2000s.
So Solich?
He had to be between 99 and 04, maybe.
It's like Solich era?
You're testing me. Don't put me on the spot.
All right.
My name is not DB Cam Newton.
Kobe says that Google yards an opponent. He remembered Spielman. That's fair.
God, I have got to meet this Kobe guy.
You got to head out to western Nebraska.
This dude.
West of Kearney.
Every day it's something different.
What?
Fudge.
It is always something different. We love Kobe though. We love Kobe.
The stream is lit.
The stream is pretty lit today.
Yeah.
It's also been lit over at CHI Health Center for your Omaha Supernovas matches. Make sure you get to supernovas.com. They got a little road stretch here, so you got some time to get your tickets. Supernovas.com is where that happens. They'll be back before you know it, just a couple weeks from this weekend against the Indy Ignite. Make sure you get to supernovas.com for tickets. DB?
Yes, sir.
Let's talk about some bets when we come back.
Yeah, let's win some money.
All right, there we go. More Hurrdat Sports Live coming up.
We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Live.
As we're wrapping up here today, I got to remind you to go see my friends over at Midlands Family Urgent Care. If you're trying to lose a little bit of weight, they can help you out with FDA-approved options to help you lose weight safely and effectively. They've helped me lose over 30 pounds over these last handful of months, and they can help you as well. Give them a call, 402-810-9494, to set up a visit with them today. You'll meet with a real live medical professional, not just chatting with somebody on the internet that you can't see their face, you don't know who they are, and they can help you through the process. It is safe and effective, and they can help you out. It's 402-810-9494. DB.
Yes, sir.
I think we landed.
Yeah.
On J.D. Spielman 2019.
Yeah, I thought it was in my head. It sounded like it felt like Spielman.
That's what my research during the break taught me.
Yeah,
I believe we landed there.
Fudge, why didn't you just ask Kobe?
Well, Kobe's got it. He's been on one. He's you know who needs a little help though. Apparently,
Who's that?
It's our guy QB Ace.
Oh, that's my dude.
He says he's been getting beat lately on his bets.
Yeah, he's had some horrible beats.
Some bad beats.
Do you know what he told me last night?
Mm.
And it was kind of late. I didn't see it until after the game because, man, listen, if it wasn't for you yahoos, I wouldn't do anything while I'm watching Nebraska basketball.
To be fair, you invited this. You started
I
this.
did.
You started it.
So, but it didn't really jump off. Like, we were fine.
Mm-hmm.
And then I jumped in. I added Jacob.
Mm-hmm.
And Jacob was like, oh, hi.
Yeah.
And then it's like, now we just hit all sorts again.
A little more wide ranging.
Yeah. So he's like, hey, I'm going to play Nebraska, and I'm going to play him on the money line.
Who did? Ace?
Ace.
Ooh, okay. So he was struggling last night. He was not feeling good.
How spot on was he, though?
No, he was right, but I mean, he wasn't right. But
so that's what I mean when I say
that's a rough one to lose.
Yeah. Well, when I said off air, you like Nebraska, and I'm like, anytime I think they can win, I'll take the 6.5.
Sure. Yeah.
Right. But that was very unfortunate, and that would have been. So what would 6.5? Don't look.
Yeah.
But you can look now.
I haven't looked yet.
What if you're getting 6.5? What would the plus money have been? 220, 230?
I was gonna say
stop.
I was gonna say 210, but I might be off.
What'd I do?
Dude just called me a Richard.
It was plus 230. You're right. Plus 230.
Okay. Oh, he said it too. I mean, that's
good plus money.
God, he's like hoping for a free throw, then take your chances.
Yeah.
Because Ohio State would have had to have a prayer at the
buzzer. Yeah.
Yeah.
With the Bryce Williams free throw. And you got a 90% free throw shooter at the line. You probably feel all right.
But Nebraska caught a break too at 99 when Ohio State missed
the same
second
thing.
one.
Yeah.
But that was after.
Yeah. So that doesn't count.
I read that. I was like, that's gutsy.
It is, yeah.
But that's good capping, though.
Well, and, circumstantially, like Nebraska, I know you don't think so. I think Nebraska really needed that one.
It's not what I said, numbnuts.
What did you say?
It was Minnesota.
I think they needed them both. I don't care what Lenardi says. I think they're out.
That's fine.
I think they're out.
But let's be honest here. If they lost to Minnesota and beat Ohio State, they're in.
I still thought they were out. I thought the loss to Minnesota was they're out.
Well, opinions like your boondahole.
Well, I guess we'll never know because they didn't beat Ohio State.
Freaking stinks.
No, I watch it.
It's fine.
Scrub.
Over time.
Try and get a little.
How about the dude telling me to get
finger? Like
the dude telling me to get a bidet the other day when I hurt my fingers. They're better now, though.
That's good.
I still can't use the fingerprint thing on my phone.
Well, yeah, that grill mark's going to last a minute.
No, I'm going to file it down.
That's not going to help you get your fingerprint back.
Yeah, it will. I'm telling you, because it's puffy. So I'm gonna, and there's no fluid. So I'm gonna file it down. So it's same as I would do when I got, I used to get blisters.
Yeah.
And it's like sandpaper. I get them smooth again, because I have to type in my code every stupid time on my phone. It drives me crazy.
You know what you could do?
What?
You just get an iPhone and then you have Face ID. And
I mean, I might. I don't know if
you can stop ruining everybody's group texts.
I don't know if I want the tutorial.
I think you're probably.
I don't appreciate you just shaming me into decision making. I'm not gonna be peer pressured.
I feel like you're just sick of having 8 different text threads for the same groups.
It is annoying, and it's the same groups.
Yeah.
I'm like, why do I have 3 group texts of the same 3 people?
Yeah. Because they're coming through via different means.
Yeah. Save it.
I'm just saying.
Something I didn't want to say.
I'm just saying. being hostile today.
Yeah,
You got any games you like?
I got a couple.
What are we doing today?
I'm gonna go to the Big East.
Big East, okay.
I have two.
What do we got?
I think the Butler will do it. They're catching 3 in the
Ooh. That would be a bad loss for Xavier.
from the hottest team in the Big East. Everybody's afraid of Xavier.
That's a bad loss for Xavier.
I like Butler. I like Butler.
I think technically would only be a quad 2 loss.
Yeah.
Because what's quad 2 go up to on the road? 90?
90.
Yeah, so it'd be quad 2. So it's not going to look that terrible, but it's not great. Butler's not good. I don't know if you know this. Pretty bad.
Well, it's
pretty bad at basketball.
So it opened at 1 in the and it's up to 3 in the I think Vegas had it right.
They had it right at
1.5. So what I need you to do is do your thing.
I'm going to Kenneth.
Check with Kenneth Pomeroy and see what he says.
I need
you to check with old Kenneth Pomeroy.
Yeah, we're always checking on Ken Pom. He's got it at 1, so you're right. They had it right the first time.
Yep. So I like Butler and I like Cincinnati.
And the public fluffed the money.
I think Tang orange juice has a bitter taste tonight. That almost elicited a response. Says day and night.
Jerome?
Yeah.
Cincy is 8.5.
I like Cincy.
You like Cincy minus the 8.5?
Yeah, I think they lay the wood.
Really? You just not feeling the Wildcats?
Nope.
Ken Palm's got it at 7, so you're going against.
Oh, dang it, Kenneth!
You're going against Kenneth now.
Oh, Pomeranians. Nobody likes those little small frou-frou.
They're little poofs,
little stinky dogs.
Just little. I mean,
can I pet that dog?
It's not like your dogs are huge. You got little big dogs. They're
yeah,
not fluffy.
but they're short hairs.
Yeah, they're not fluffy.
No, we don't do the.
Yeah,
we don't do the puffballs.
Can I pet that dog?
No more long hairs at our house after Ravi.
That's it.
Yeah,
you're like, yeah.
I don't mind it, but Natasha's like, there's the dog hair around the house gonna drive me crazy.
So I got to ask you something.
Yeah.
What would you make UConn and Marquette? I looked at this game every which way but Clint Eastwood.
Where
this morning?
Where's it at?
Where it's at UConn.
At UConn. I'm gonna say UConn 2.5.
It's 4.
Okay, it's a little high for me.
Seems like it.
It's a little high. Seems a little.
What's Kenneth make it?
Seems a little juicy for my taste.
Just don't go anywhere but loose with it.
What?
I'd love to give you a right turn, but you're so stinking
All
little,
right,
I would
whatever.
feel bad. I'd shatter something.
Kenneth has it.
Yes.
As 1 point.
Yeah, I like Marquette.
Yeah, if they're getting 4.
And I get it. Marquette's been shaky, but I kind of like Marquette.
Well, don't tell that to Danny Hurley.
You're such a hater. Oh, so I've got some new heads coming, and I forgot to get Hurley.
Oh no!
You're such a.
Oh no! I'm gonna draw a mustache.
Oh, you can, bro, him.
I'm gonna.
Remember when he hit me with that? I was so mad.
No.
Oh no! Wow, Cam, are you calling me a baby?
I'm gonna draw a mustache on Hurley when you bring him in.
Oh, we need a Hurley.
Nobody really needs a Hurley.
It's a big one tonight.
Yeah. You see the E60 they're coming out on Hurley?
Yeah. He'll be interesting.
It makes sense why he's such a dick now. Richard, sorry, why he's such a Richard now. It's just long-standing daddy issues. That makes sense. I get it.
I told you there's a thing called it's wounds of the father.
Yeah.
It's a real thing with dudes.
So, like, hey, I have a really good idea, though.
What?
Instead of swearing at children behind the bench, just go get some therapy. just an idea.
Tough crowd.
More Hurrdat Sports Live tomorrow.